die. Goddamn. Goddamn. Sooner or later, I'm gonna have a goddamn pretty eye mixtape, though. I can't deny her, though. She's my bestie. She's my bestie. That's my bestie. Your pair of eyes had me paralyzed. Toxic nigga, but you made me to a better guy. Smoke, but with you on forever, ever high. Can watch you all day, girl, like you televised. Think like this nigga, they ain't never lied. I lived the beaches alone, I had to pick a side. Look in your eyes, girl, you were hypnotized. Of course, it was your breasts, hips, and them damn thighs. Close my eyes, I'm still mesmerized. Trying to get mad at my bestie, I tried. That's my bestie. My pretty.
I heard she's the one. She's got it going on. That's my pretty eyes, baby. Yeah, yeah. She don't take no mess. My bestie is the best. That's my pretty eyes, baby. Yeah, yeah. I heard she's the one. She's got it going on. That's my pretty eyes, baby.
Put your eyes on me, I'm pretty iced tea. What's up, Cold Pepsi? How are you? How are you? All right. We are so we're just doing a what testimony I think we need to hear before the trial starts, because I'm taking tomorrow night off. I'm not taking the day off because I got Lori wackadoodle self. I got her trial tomorrow, but I'm going to take tomorrow night off and, and then get ready for Tuesday. Tuesday should be fun. Tuesday is trial 2. We got to go through this BS again, but they're supposed to have different witnesses. We'll see. We'll see what's up. We'll see what slimy things the new prosecutor's about to do, but hey, whatever, we're here for it, right? We're here for it. Just prove your case. That's all I say. Prove your case, baby. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do Trooper Paul's cross. Let's see. This is the accident reconstructionist. Yeah. He's wonderful, I think.
Thanks, sir. I have no further questions.
Okay, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Here we go. Cross. Cool. Right on the noodle. Woohoo!
So do you have any, do you hold any degrees in the scientific discipline of mathematics?
Hi,
I do not.
Kevin. You
In the
ready?
scientific discipline of physics?
I do not.
Hold any degrees in the scientific discipline
We
of
ready? We
biomechanics?
ready?
No.
How about in engineering?
No.
How about in kinematics?
No.
What's the highest degree that you do hold, sir?
I have an associate's degree.
In what?
Administration of justice.
You mentioned kinematics on Friday. Do you hold any certificates in the specific area of kinematics?
Yes, it's covered in the basic crash investigation classes.
Jackson, you're not supposed to come out of the gate like that. Let's just go right for your degrees. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you hold there, buddy. What cards are you holding? You know, this is why I said we're just going to do... Oh, Kevin, we are going to go through, or we're going to listen to the, the end all be all, the dirty messages she left John O'Keefe that morning when she dropped him off and he never came out. That caused her to unalive him, too. Anyways, okay. But come on, Jackson, give the little dude a break. He's scared of his mother fudger up there.
Okay, so you took a class, in other words, correct? You testified about that on Friday.
Yes.
Child nerd.
It deals with the aspect of motion.
It's a subfield of what broader field?
Kinematics?
Kinematics is a subfield of what broader discipline of science?
I'm not sure.
Jackson, stop it.
Yes.
And it
You
describes
called
how
him
points and
out.
objects
That's not nice.
systems of objects
Hey, That's not nice, Jackson. You're not supposed to know more than the freaking expert, Jackson. You're not supposed to do that.
How they move and how the rate they move and the rate of their velocity, correct?
It deals with the motions.
What's that called? The rate of velocity. What's another word for that?
The rate of velocity.
Right.
I mean, it deals with motion. It deals with forward and also deals with speed. It deals with travel and speed. If something's moving, it also has a speed to it.
Right. The word you're looking for is acceleration, correct?
Sure.
What role does acceleration play in the field of kinematics?
What role does acceleration play in kinematics?
Stop asking him what he asked you. We get that you're a scared little turtle up on the stand. I don't know who put you up to this, but goddamn, you should be fired. You need to go back on the street because you have no business in show business. Okay, you should not be accident reconstructing nothing. Don't ever reconstruct any accident I may be involved in, sir. Please, thank you.
It talks about, like you just said, it talks about speed and talks about motion.
Is kinematics also known as the geometry of motion? Is that correct?
I've not heard that.
Never heard that.
Do you even know geometry, sir?
What's the difference between constrained and unconstrained motion?
Constrained, unconstrained motion.
That's what I
Oh
asked.
my God. What?
Constrained motion. I can't recollect at the moment.
Constrained motion is motion on a predetermined path, isn't it?
This poor little
Yes.
dude.
Unconstrained motion is what?
When it doesn't have a predetermined path.
Free movement, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember that from your class?
For the most part, we don't go that depth. Constrained and unconstrained.
Constrained and unconstrained, not restrained.
That's what I said. Sorry, unconstrained. Yes.
Kinematics uses algebraic formula to model these motions, right? The motions of these points, systems of points, correct?
Yes.
And it includes concepts like displacement and speed, velocity, distance, acceleration, which we talked about, correct?
Correct.
And it looks at how these things, these values vary over a point in time or duration in time. Is that right? Do
Yes.
you actually understand the physics behind the study of kinematics?
No.
Yes.
The word you learned in class.
Yes,
No.
we had to go over the physics part of it.
On Friday, you said that this
You
incident
do?
is a pedestrian
doubt
strike from the
that.
field. You reiterated that again this morning. Is that right?
'Cause
Correct.
Physics will tell you a whole arm would be freaking broken off at 22 miles an hour, sir, with the 7,000 pound object. You would go flying through the mother fudging air. Hey, I'm working on my swearing, so yay for me. But you'd go flying through the mother fudging air, and you wouldn't just trip and go la and fall into the grass. You just wouldn't do that. Also, the velocity of the vehicle wouldn't just stop on a hair, so you wouldn't know where the heck it went. It would go in the middle of the freaking lawn or in the house. And I don't even know that much shit, but I at least know that much.
That is your
Sure.
opinion based on your training and experience, correct?
Yes.
And on Friday, you said you based that opinion on the fact that you noted a half-mile-an-hour decrease in speed and a steering input of less than 10 degrees at some point in that reverse motion, correct?
I said that was consistent. That data point in general was consistent with something that you would see within data.
Okay, do you also know that data point that you're talking about? Do you know that data point was when her car was being backed up and into a freaking tow truck? She had no control of her vehicle then, sir. You counted the wrong data points because you're a dummy.
Of a pedestrian strike or striking something else. I do go on my report saying I can't say that's definitively where a pedestrian was struck, but
I'm sorry.
it wasn't definitively. Sorry, in my report, I do say I can't say that is definitively where the pedestrian struck.
You cannot say it.
Definitively, yes.
Okay, so you're going to have to slow down and speak up, okay?
You said, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, and I apologize.
Okay.
You said you cannot say definitively that resulted in a pedestrian strike.
That data point within the text stream data is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That specific points, that time frame.
Because it wasn't. It was when her car was being backed up. I counted along with him. I even read that too when I was watching it. And I said, wait a minute. That don't even make any sense. Because So her vehicle was in the police possession. If you really want to talk about it, hers was like what'd you say, 1154 or some shit. Anyways, like you were like 5 key cycles off, dude. You just seen the point and said, "Oh, I could work with this one, huh?" Because no kinematics, no biomechanics, no physics, nothing went into your bullshit. It's just mumbo jumbo. You even have a hard time articulating what the hell you did.
There's a multitude of reasons why when someone is driving in reverse, they might slow down by half a mile an hour, right?
It's when I say when it's consistent, it's because there's the other aspects of it is the fact that the accelerator is consistently strong.
Let him answer.
Drops by half a mile, and the steering wheel all of a sudden goes to the right. That's what I'm talking about when I say it is consistent with a pedestrian strike. That's something that you see. It's not going to be a huge change of speed during this collision.
You also note that at the time, it had begun to snow, correct?
Yes.
There would be snow on the lawn, right?
Correct.
There would be snow on the cars,
Yes.
snow on the trees,
Yes.
snow on the roadway.
Yes.
Snow on the roadway could impact how tires move over the roadway, correct?
In a way.
And obviously
Yes.
there are
Not in a way, yes.
Somebody might input a 10-degree input on a steering wheel, correct?
Correct. That's why I second defending say it.
Right. So every time somebody slows down, going reverse or forward, and introduces a 10-degree input on the steering wheel, that means they're looking to hit a pedestrian, correct?
Correct.
You testified that you determined the area of impact by basically following, if I heard your testimony correctly, basically following the debris field from the body where you believed John O'Keefe's body's final resting place was, almost linearly to the furthermost piece of debris that was found. Did I get that right?
Yes.
In other words, you established what in your mind, or what you were told was his final resting place, and what you were told was the debris field. And you indicated that the furthermost piece of debris would basically be the area, correct?
It's within that line. I didn't say that is the area impact where the furthermost piece of evidence is.
Right.
It's just the linear, like you said earlier. It's that linear. We're going that path. That's the path that he traveled post impact with the vehicle.
And that is on which that fact that you stated is on which what you. Terrible question. That's the basis for your opinion of where the area of impact was, correct?
Yes.
Let's take a look at exhibit, with the court's permission, 587. It's your diagram 3. If I may approach it on this verb.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd take a deep breath out too, buddy.
May I approach?
Yes.
So you can see it. Your Honor, you publish
It's like, oh
exhibit
God.
587.
Yes.
diagram 3.
This is your diagram.
Okay. Sir, you see diagram 3 on the board. You also have it in front of you, correct?
Yes.
It's easier for you to refer to what's in front of you because that's a little bit further away. Just let me know.
Okay.
The red arrows adjacent to the blue writing, where I'm highlighting right now, indicate basically the debris field.
Oh,
that's
that's horrible.
Yes.
And then there's a point of an arrow that comes back to a wording that says pedestrian's final rest, basically right there, correct?
Yes.
And the debris field ends right in the middle of that spotlight, correct?
Yes.
All right. So that's the area of impact that you indicated to Mr. Wally you believe occurred because of the debris field and the linear portion of that debris field going from the pedestrian's final rest all the way out to that final little red arrow that says red plastic B in parentheses, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, can we have exhibit 492 published, Mr. Chair, please?
Okay.
Approach.
Yes.
Which makes no fucking sense.
While that's coming up, have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
Take a look just above the arrow. Your Honor, with permission, maybe highlight or magnify the area just above the arrow.
Okay.
You see that
Yes, I do.
right underneath fire hydrant, correct?
Correct.
What does that look like to you?
A piece of plastic.
It's debris, correct?
Correct.
All right. Can we go back with the court's permission to exhibit 87?
Okay.
Diagram 3. You see the fire hydrant?
Yes.
Fire hydrant's right there, correct?
Correct.
That's another, according to your scale, that's probably a good 30 feet from the pedestrian's final rest, correct?
Yeah, that's about right.
That is the furthermost in this diagram, the furthermost piece of debris on the diagram, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
So now, your testimony changed that this, in fact, is the area of impact.
No, because it's just a piece of debris. I'm talking about the path. You follow the path of the debris field. Debris can move and change.
The debris doesn't fly backward, does it?
I'm saying you point to like just the fire hydrant as the area impact with the debris, where that one piece of plastic was, saying that's the area impact is right next to the fire hydrant.
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, that's what you said, right?
I'm asking you.
I'm making sure I'm understanding what you're saying, so I can answer the right.
Ask the question again, Mr. Jackson.
In fact, you indicated on Friday that your analysis of the area of impact was predicated on, based
Oh,
on
I forgot how
the
horrible
furthermost
this
piece of
testimony
debris
is.
from the pedestrian's body that you were aware of, which is right there, red plastic B, right?
I said it's like I said earlier with the linear equation. I mean, it might have moved it over more, but it's the debris, the start of that debris, and when that is, I can't say that's definitely the point of area impact or the point of impact. I cannot say that is the point of impact right there. You just kind of follow the linear path because they have to follow in a direct path that way.
Okay, so now your testimony is that's not the area of impact.
I never said that was the area impact. I said it's after that.
Trooper, we were all here on Friday.
Okay.
That's exactly what you said in the questioning by Mr. Wiley, wasn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Didn't you say on Friday that you determined the area of impact for Mr. O'Keefe, the point of impact, was red plastic B because that was the furthermost piece of debris you were aware of from the final point of rest from Mr. O'Keefe's body? Isn't that what you said?
I don't believe that's my exact words.
Okay, I'm not asking if it was your exact words. I don't have a transcript of it. I'm asking you, is that what you tried to impart to the jurors?
What I said to the jury, I said after that. That's the start of that's the last point of evidence that I had. I said the area impact is probably along the roadway after that point. I mean, like before it, you have to walk towards him.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that.
Oh
done now.
gosh, this is
Now you're
horrible.
aware there's a piece of debris, looks like taillight material, right under the fire hydrant, correct?
Correct.
If the area of impact, which you indicated on Friday, was where this red plastic B is, you would be wrong, right? Your analysis would be flawed.
No, because that's not what I said. I said it's along the roadway. It's going to be after that point.
Okay, so is the area of impact now where the fire hydrant is?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
Are you now indicating, because now you realize that there's a piece of debris directly under the fire hydrant, are you now indicating that that's the area of impact where John O'Keefe's body was struck?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let's take a look at exhibit, with the court's permission, 279.
Okay.
Take a look at exhibit 279. I want to draw your attention to that piece right there, of plastic. You see it?
Yes.
You describe it for me. Just physically, what does that look like?
It's like clear plastic with a little bit of red and black on the top part.
Okay. Maybe in a triangular shape, is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if we could go back to, with the court's permission, exhibit 492,
Okay.
and highlight just above the ruler. How would you describe that piece of material?
It looks like the same piece.
Does that, based on that, does that appear to be part of the taillight material that was found at the scene?
Correct.
Now, based on that, are you now suggesting, if we could go with the court's permission, if we could go back to 587, I'll stop jumping around just a second. I think we
Okay.
just get back to 587. Oh, sorry, the diagram. Okay. Now, seeing what you just now seen in terms of that piece of plastic that appears to be from the taillight, does that appear to be under the fire hydrant, which is highlighted? Same piece.
Yes.
Okay. Based on that, does that change your opinion? Is that now the fire hydrant now the point of impact?
No.
Where's the point of impact now?
It's along the roadway. I don't know the exact point of impact.
So you don't know the area of impact?
I said the area impact is along the roadway after the debris. I mean, the only thing would change. Only thing would change is maybe it was a little further away. But besides that, it's a linear field. I'm not talking about like one point. You've kind of followed the middle of the debris field, and that should be the path.
Well, if the point of impact is along the roadway, where along the roadway, you can show the jurors where along the roadway, in your expert opinion, was the point of impact?
It should be within, if you follow from pedestrians, find a rest here, just kind of follow back. That's what I'm talking about, linear field. I can't.
So now you've indicated an area, I can follow your laser pointer, an area along here, correct?
Yes, somewhere in there.
All right, if I have my spotlight, is that, if I leave it right there, is that about where the middle of the spotlight, about where you believe the area of impact is?
It's within, I guess you can say it's within that area. I don't know, definitely there's nothing on the roadway that has a definitive point that says this is the area impact right here.
Lord, dude.
It's within the roadway based on
You
the evidence at
pointed
the
to a
scene.
specific
Paul.
spot.
True or false? I'm asking you, based on your expert opinion and your conclusions, based on your full analysis, can you point me to within an area of 5 feet or so on the roadway where you believe the area of impact is? Is my spotlight basically highlighting the area that you believe, in your opinion, is the area of impact?
You have that laser pointer?
I do.
Why don't we let him show you? It'd be easier for the jury to see.
So what I'm trying to say is, so we follow the linear path back around this area.
Okay, can you,
And sorry, I'm trying to keep it straight as much as I can. Follow back to here. I can't say, like, if this definitely is, but it's possibly based on also vehicle damage to the back of the vehicle. So if you follow back to here, that could be a possible area impact.
So when you say that area there, I want to be very clear for the record that what you highlighted is an area basically just to the left of an X that's on the roadway, on the bottom of diagram 3, toward the lower part of diagram 3.
It's
correct.
You would use your circle almost kind of be a good area around.
Sorry.
You can use a circle around here. This would be around the area.
Okay.
Okay.
So using your scale, that scale is going from full left to full right. It's plus or minus 40 feet, right?
Switch. Can't see it. So say again. Say the question.
That scale is 40 feet. Going full left, full right, 40 feet.
It's 40 feet. It's a 10-foot scale.
Okay, sorry, 20 feet. My mistake.
Oh, okay.
As observed. 20 feet. Thank you. All right, so if you use that scale, can you estimate for the jurors? I'm just going to use this X as a starting point. You estimate for the jurors from this X that I highlighted, the pedestrian's final rest. What's that number? Doesn't have to be exact. Give me an estimate.
So, I mean, it could be within 30 feet. There's also on my scale, this 2 and 3 is 50 feet from each other.
It's how much?
50.
Okay. 50.
50.
So would you agree that from this X down here to pedestrian's final rest, that's probably a good 35, 40 feet.
I mean, I could try to use the scale, but it is near the scale.
If you wouldn't mind. Can you use paper?
Yes, please.
With permission?
Okay.
Just blank piece of paper.
Thank you. Thank you.
You need a pen?
I got one. Thank you.
You didn't know you was gonna do math today, huh, sir? Oh shit! That's freaking freezing. I hate these new pills.
Still around. It's approximately 30 feet.
We're approximately 30 feet.
Yes.
Okay. Can you place, with the court's permission, can you estimate 30 feet in here?
Can I
Can you point to a place in the courtroom that looks like 30 feet?
Objection.
No. Next question.
Does the court have
Yeah.
a diagram of the,
Well, damn.
the diagram of distances?
In this courtroom? No.
You indicated just now, and I'm finished with this. Thank you. Yes. You indicated just now in answer to Mr. Lowry's last couple of questions that in your expert opinion, when the SUV struck pedestrian John O'Keefe, he was, quote, projected forward and to the left to the front yard to his final place of rest.
Yes.
So your expert testimony is that John O'Keefe was hit with the SUV and flew 30 feet.
Projected mean like he, not say he flew all the way there. He was projected in that way. He got pushed forward in that direction.
Which he was rendered incapacitated, landed there, that's or fly there. Right. You didn't walk there.
I mean, would you definitely fly like literally off the ground the whole entire time? Or,
Well, you tell me, you're the expert.
I mean, he got, when we say projected, I mean, he's projected and they usually have a landing phase.
Of that 30 feet.
I don't know. There's no indication of where his exact landing spot was.
Is there any evidence whatsoever that he landed and rolled?
And there was no evidence that he landed or rolled. Rolled.
According to you, the evidence that you have in front of you is that you get hit, fly 30 feet, land where he ended up in his final rest, right?
Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently.
Based on your expert opinion, you believe that he was projected through the air to his final rest place.
That's not what I'm saying.
But you said there's no evidence that he rolled.
And there's no evidence that he flew through the air either.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
Objection.
Sustained.
You said on Friday that in your experience, people tend to lose objects. they're not struck.
That's the point right there.
Yes.
Had he been struck by a fucking car going 22 miles an hour, you would expect him to fly. He believes he can fly. And I mean no disrespect, like, but still, come on, dude. You would fly. You get hit by a car 10 fucking feet or 10 miles per hour, you're gonna fly. Maybe just a little bit. But at 20 miles an hour, you're gonna fly. You're just gonna fly. The car's gonna go in the middle of the freaking lawn or the house, and you're gonna fly. You're gonna believe you're gonna fly. Yeah. That's crazy. Like,
In other words, get hit by something, car, truck, bus, whatever, train, and if you have something in your hand, oh, you lose it, you drop it. If it's not strapped to you, correct?
Correct.
How do you suppose that Mr. O'Keefe, in your opinion, held on to that glass cup that was found right next to him over the course of 30 feet being protected?
Objection.
Yeah, how, especially when he's being hit in the arm. He's being hit in the arm like this, you know, against the taillight. Probably the glass went in his face, boom, in his face. He's going flying because how else would he get lacerations other than, you know, being hit and stuff? I mean, yeah, that may cause lacerations, but like a glass to the face, yes, definitely he would have a couple lacerations. So what was he holding the cup like this? And he got it like this. He was taking a drink like this, and it went all in his face. And then he would have shot. He would have shot. And I'm sorry, his arm would have been busted. His freaking ribs would have been bruised. He probably would have had his freaking hip broke. 7,000 pounds going 20 miles an hour. You're going to expect some damage. That's not a little bump. Especially if you're going, I mean, shit. I've seen worse. I've seen fender benders where they're only going 10 miles an hour and the car's crunched up against a stationary object. I just can't.
Do you have a theory on that?
I don't know. I mean, it just could have been with them the whole way. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know how the glass stayed with his body.
But I mean, it's just common sense. You have to believe it. It was in his hand. He held onto it the entire time he was being projected. Right?
It's possibly, it could have been his hand. It could have been tucked next to his clothing. Did
you say tucked in?
I mean, like, could have been next to his body. So when he projected, maybe the glass was with his body as it was also flying. And so there's a number of reasons why the glass also got projected with the body while he was holding it.
I thought you said on Friday, and you just agreed with me, that people drop things and they're hit.
Yes, body. Not everything it tends to fly off. I mean, some stuff flies off, some stuff will stay on. It's not uncommon to find a piece of clothing and stuff, that you find at the scene. Like clothing, like shoes, like shoes and stuff like that to come off the body during a pedestrian crash.
Well, that's not what I asked.
I know, I'm just saying, you asked what you said about this. I'm just responding to what you said. I'm trying to make sure you understand what I'm saying.
No, I don't, but I'll ask another question. Shoes are strapped on by definition, right?
Yes, but it's very common for shoes to come off.
How about a cell phone?
Cell phone, yeah. It all depends, depending on where it is.
Well, it was under his body.
Okay.
At a high velocity, yes, shoes come flying off. At a low velocity, I don't know if you would be out your shoes. I don't know. I don't know that.
How do you account for that? You held onto your cell phone with one hand and held onto your cup with the other.
Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently.
If the cell phone was found under his torso, under his body, what's your theory on how that cell phone ended up flying 30 feet?
It just did.
Just did. And somehow, as he landed, tucked that cell phone underneath his body so he landed on top of it.
It just did. That's the evidence at the scene. I didn't put the evidence there. So
Well, you didn't.
Objection.
All right. So, jurors, I've told you before, lawyers cannot make.
Well, you didn't, but somebody else did. Because Karen didn't do it.
So disregard it. Mr. Jackson, don't do it
I
again.
understand. So
You understand, but don't do it. Your answer is always, I understand. Don't do it.
Yes, sure. Cell phone in one hand, cup in the other hand, food in the other. Right?
Objection.
But I mean, do you really blame him, Judge? I mean, these are the tools that he's working with. We all get a little frustrated with tools. Come on.
Sustained.
You were informed of this incident on January 29th, 2022 at about 2:30 in the afternoon. Is that right?
yes,
At the time, you were working out of the Cars facility, which is located on West Grove Street in Middleborough. Is that right?
yes.
By the way, that's a facility that has multiple
At 2:30, how would they know it's a freaking car accident? If they didn't if they didn't go to Karen's till 3:12, how at 2:30 they know it's a car accident? Unless they planted something. Come on.
garages. Sally ports, I don't know if they're called Sally ports, but garage bays, correct?
The mechanic shop are there.
The mechanic shop
Yes.
is if you're going to review, for instance, for purposes of reconstruction, if you're going to review a vehicle, is the vehicle placed in those mechanics bays?
No, not there. That's for state police vehicles.
Okay, so where are the mechanics bays? Sorry, reverse that. Where are the Sally ports where you do your analysis, your reconstruction, your review of the vehicle, inspections, things of that nature?
We don't have Sally ports for that.
You don't have anything dedicated to that?
No, the only time we would use a Sally port is the crime scene would have some Sally ports that they would do to document their crime scene stuff. And I've gone there to do my inspections, but most of our inspections are done either at the tow yard or some type of facility for that.
Ultimately, was this SUV ever taken to the Middleborough facility?
Yes, it was.
Where was it placed?
There's a fenced-in area inside it's a fenced-in area.
Is it outside or inside?
Outside.
Okay. Did it remain outside in that fenced-in area the whole time?
I don't know the exact time. It was there for a while, then it got moved.
Where did it get moved to?
I'm not sure exactly where they moved it immediately after I left Middleborough.
Are you familiar with the Foxborough location?
Yes.
Does that have Sally ports or bays for inspection and evaluation?
It has garages in it, but we wouldn't use them. We don't normally use those garages for inspections.
Is it possible to use those garages for inspections?
It is possible.
Okay. Tavern before, correct?
I've not used the inspection in the garages.
But
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up and
Sorry,
speak
yes.
slowly.
But you know they could be used.
Sorry.
You know that those bays could be used for inspections or analysis or evaluation if needed, correct?
Yes.
Given the
He's
fact
not-
that the SUV that was being seized on January 29th
It should have never went to Canton.
was being seized as potential evidence, best practices would suggest that you want to get it in and out of the bad weather, the inclement weather, as quickly as possible, correct? You wouldn't want to subject it to continued forces from nature like rain, wind, snow, sleet, hail.
Right.
That would be beneficial, yes.
All right. You're aware that the Foxborough location and the Middleborough location with the mechanics bays are all closer to Dighton than Canton, right?
Both Foxborough and
Foxborough and Middleborough are both closer to Dighton than Canton. In other words, you have to pass by, depending on which way you go, pass by Middleborough, pass by Foxborough to get to Canton.
so from where?
From Dighton, sorry.
So from Dighton.
Where the vehicle
Oh
was
my
seized,
God.
Yep.
Open your listening ears.
all going toward Canton, you pass by either Middleborough or Foxborough to get to Canton, correct?
I don't believe you'd pass by Middleborough to get to Canton, but you've passed by Foxborough.
The car was not taken to Foxborough, was it?
No.
As a matter of fact, the car was taken basically double the distance all the way to Canton to that Sally Port, correct?
Objection.
Do you know that? Is that double the distance?
I don't know the exact distance. I know it was in Canton.
And you know it's far to Canton,
From Dighton, yes.
right?
From a recused PDs.
And you're also aware that because you've been to the scene, assuming correct, the 3430.
Yes. That's that.
But they couldn't.
PD.
But
Yes,
but see, they couldn't have manipulated the bullshit if they didn't do it at Canton. So they had to take it to Canton.
3-4 minutes apart.
Yeah, I can say that.
When you started let me ask this a little different way. Before you began any review on this case, any physical review on this case or analysis on the case, you were told that there had been a crash, correct?
Yes.
You testified to that at the state court grand jury in this matter. Is that right? That you've been told in advance this was a vehicle pedestrian crash and you were asked to analyze it, right?
Yes.
You wrote in your report that it was a single vehicle collision involving a pedestrian and you were, quote, assigned to reconstruct that collision, correct?
Yes.
So when you began your analysis, Super Paul, you were told conclusively by the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, that the deceased was hit by a car and your job was to reconstruct it. Is that right?
Objection.
Okay, so there are lots of parts to that. Break it down.
Sure. Were you told by Michael Proctor to reconstruct this incident?
How would they
So were
know
you
at
told that by
2:30
people?
though?
I was not.
Okay, next question.
Sure. Who were you told? Who were you given your instructions by?
Instructions for what?
Reconstruct this incident.
Oh my God, dude.
I wasn't given instructions to reconstruct it. It's just I was assigned to it. That was requested. My assistance was requested to reconstruct it.
That's my question. Who assigned you to it?
I talked to my sergeant at the time. He gave me the phone call.
And you were told some basics about that reconstruction, the event that you were asked to reconstruct, correct?
Yes.
The information that you were told came from the case officer. Is that right?
Who's the case officer?
The
Oh my God,
information that this was
dude.
a pedestrian vehicle incident, as opposed to
Forgot how
motor vehicle
horrible
incident,
testimony is.
pedestrian bicycle, motor vehicle motorcycle. You were told it was
How
a
much
motor vehicle.
longer do you
Yes,
have on the
you were asked to
stand? Because I
reconstruct, right?
can't take
I
it.
was told that. Yes.
And you had to be given some basic parameters of what that incident, how that incident occurred. The car was going in reverse. It's got a damaged taillight, things like that.
Some basic stuff. Yeah.
What I'm asking is, I'm trying to get to is, who gave you that information? Where did it come from?
That the car was traveling. Like which part of the information? You asked me about several different things just now.
Were you given information from multiple sources? Or did someone give you a summary of what you were being asked to do at the very beginning?
Yep.
Who gave you the summary?
Summary of the whole entire. Of what?
Of the event that you were asked to reconstruct?
Oh my God,
I was
dude.
passed down when I got to the garage. I was told that it was a pedestrian crash and it was a Boston police officer involved. that this was a vehicle, and that it was traveling in reverse. That's all I had.
Okay. What I'm asking is, that's great. Thank you for the summary. Who gave you that summary?
I don't know if it was definitely anybody from the get-go that was like I talked to.
From where?
I don't know if it's anybody that I could definitely say that was the person. There was multiple people going around when I got there. I think I talked to Trooper Zach Clark. He was doing crime scene. I think he was Zach Clark. He was the crime scene photos at the time. I knew him from past crashes. He just said this is the vehicle, and I think he kind of gave me a little bit of a lowdown on what the vehicle was.
Okay.
So
My question is this: when you got that, did you call it a lowdown? Give you the lowdown?
he gave me information. Yes.
Right. When you got the lowdown, you were told Boston police officer was involved. The vehicle pedestrian incident, car was going in reverse, ultimately led to the death of the pedestrian. Struck the pedestrian in reverse, correct?
Correct.
And you were assigned specifically to try to reconstruct that incident.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the phrase confirmation bias?
Yes,
I know the
Spider
phrase,
Rider,
yes.
don't you start. I don't
can't
need
definitely say what it
tomato
means.
on my face, sir.
Developing a conclusion and then trying to find evidence to fit that conclusion. Does that sound right?
If you say so.
Freaking freezing.
You noted in your direct examination that there were scratches on the passenger side rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes.
How exactly were you able to scientifically determine that any of those scratches were from an incident on January 29th, 2022, as opposed to any other time?
I didn't have anything else on the time. I said that those scratches happened prior to this collision.
I'm sorry.
I didn't have any information that those scratches were caused from a prior collision. And so when I looked at the evidence, I knew it was in that same area, the right tail light.
What did it have
so
to be from a
when I looked at
collision? Why
it
couldn't
didn't quite fit the
have been
pedestrian thing.
somebody
So when you showed me the video, or I saw the video like a year ago on Court TV, I said that could be.
tree or
You asked the question, so next,
I
keep
can't
going.
respond.
He's answering. Next
trying to-
question. Then
Yes,
go
that's
ahead.
scientific
Hold
what
on.
the scratches were.
Hold on. Ask your
Sorry.
question, Mr. Jackson.
You know what normal wear and tear on a vehicle is, right?
Yes.
Bumpers get scratched myriad ways, correct?
Correct.
Get scratched in a grocery store parking lot, right?
exactly.
Yes.
Shopping cart can bounce off the back of the car and scratch the bumper, scratch the side of the car, quarter panel or something, right?
Sure.
I don't want to go through it, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of ways that a car can get scratched, correct?
Correct.
My question is, do you, as you sit here, do you have any scientific evidence that those scratches occurred on January 29th at approximately 12:45 a.m.?
What do you mean by scientific evidence?
Well, do you have any evidence whatsoever that you can point to that those scratches occurred on that date and at that time, rather than any other time in the history of that
Like,
vehicle?
this is horrible stuff.
Like I said earlier, the video seems to appear that's what it looks like that could have been from.
Well, you said on Friday, let's talk about those scratches for a second.
Yeah.
You testified Friday, you were pretty clear. You said that, if I can find it exactly.
Stop flicking. Stop licking.
I may have just one here on it.
Sure.
You don't need to lick.
You said, quote, the dent and scratches for his hand could be, those are consistent with striking the Lexus. Remember saying that?
Yes, on the tailgate.
Okay, so the dent and scratches you talked about on Friday, you said were from his hand.
Yes, hand in the glass cup.
Okay. Then are those the same scratches you're talking about in terms of the bumper?
No.
So,
What are you talking about the scratch inside the bumper that we've been talking about?
correct.
Okay,
That's what I'm
no.
talking about. Okay. Is there any way to scientifically date a scratch?
Nope.
No.
You go out in the parking lot right now, even as an accident reconstructionist, you walk out in the parking lot right now and look at a Toyota Camry sitting there. It's got a scratch on it. There's no analysis that you can engage in to date that scratch. Could you?
Objection.
So you can ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Is there any way that you could, in general, look at a scratch and say, that scratch is from such and such date?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Nope.
I'll allow it.
You cannot say you can look at evidence and shows that it may have been older than what the newer evidence would be, but there's no way to say that specific date and time and that a scratch would came from.
Right. And it's possible that any or all of those scratches on the Lexus could have predated January 29th, correct?
Yep.
No,
If that's not possible.
the ones that are on from the tail light and the other parts of it.
Scratches anywhere on the car.
Depends
Oh
on what
my
you got to put the other
God,
scratches.
dude.
You got to show me other scratches on the car.
I'm saying it's possible, since you can't date a scratch,
You can.
it's possible that any or all of those scratches could predate January 29th.
Exactly.
It's possible.
You're being pretty broad on your scratches here.
Oh my.
I'm not being brought it. Let me ask it a different way. Let me ask it again. Is it possible that any or all of the scratches noted on that car predate January 29th?
Any and all of the scratches? See, that's what I'm saying. You're being pretty broad. Any and all scratches on the car
Answer that question.
that it predate. Objection. I don't know every single scratch on that car. I could mean
Overruled. So can you answer that question?
no.
You testified that you noted glass on the rear bumper of the SUV, correct?
Yes.
And you said something about that glass coming from the cup.
Correct.
You also said that you did not see anything on that SUV that could be the source of those glass pieces on the bumper, right?
Yes.
When you did your reconstruction and your analysis, were you informed that none of the glass pieces, not one of them, would be matched to the cup?
I don't know anything about this. I don't know that.
So if you knew that the glass pieces on the bumper do not match the cup, does that change your opinion
Objection.
about that glass?
Can you answer that question?
I cannot.
You can't answer the question.
It's what was told to me as evidence
By whom?
by the crime scene.
Who told you?
As crime scene that was there, it says it's glass in the cup. When I did my initial inspection, that's what it was on from.
That's not what you just said. You said that's what was told to me.
Yeah, by crime. By crime scene. While I was at my inspection,
Wait, what?
it was told to me by the crime scene when I was at my inspection, at the initial inspection.
So what you meant by that's what was told to me is the crime scene talked to you.
Yes.
Crime scene say anything else?
I don't know what else you want me to say.
The crime scene spoke to him.
Did Trooper Proctor tell you that those pieces of glass on the bumper are somehow associated with the cup?
No.
Just the crime scene told you.
Correct.
But if you knew that the crime scene was incorrect, and in fact those glass pieces don't match the cup, that change your opinion?
Objection.
Sustained.
Would it change your opinion in any way if you knew that the glass pieces do not match the cup?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Can you answer that question?
No.
I'm sorry. No.
I don't. It's glass from a cup. It's glass. It's not. It doesn't belong to the vehicle.
Right.
It's glass.
But if I told you it didn't match that cup,
What?
your opinion?
Objection.
Does that change your opinion?
Are we talking which cup? We never established which cup we're talking about.
How many cups have we been talking about, Trooper?
You said that cup. One from the scene. Okay.
That cup. I'm talking.
I just want to make sure that we're on the clear path here. I'm clear what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really sure.
All I said,
It was found next to John O'Keefe's body in the snow at 34 Fairview on January 29, 2022. You got the cup in mind?
yes.
Okay. That's the cup. When I say cup, that's the cup.
Okay.
Would it change your opinion if I told you that the glass pieces on the bumper don't match that cup?
What's my opinion on it? All I said was glass from a cup. That's the only opinion I had. Is glass from a cup that was on a bumper.
Are you saying a cup?
A cup. A cup. It's not glass from the car. That
How
was
do
my
you know
opinion on
it's
it.
a glass from
I
a
didn't never
cup?
said it matched to the scene.
You did.
I never said that in my thing. I said it's glass from a cup.
Hey, Daniel.
Okay. It's safe to say you didn't do any testing to determine the forces necessary to shatter a taillight on a 2021 Lexus 570, correct?
I did not do testing.
Your report indicates, we talked about this a little bit, I'm gonna go back to something we talked about earlier this morning.
All
report
debris
indicates
should
that
matter,
John O'Keefe
though,
was found arrested
shouldn't
place
it?
about 7 feet from the roadway, and that's what you based your diagram on, correct?
Yes.
Who told you that number?
I measured it from a diagram.
You should say that again.
I measured it from the diagram.
Okay, what I'm asking is how did it get on the diagram? In other words, who told you that his body was 7 feet from the roadway?
Well, wait, I was told by Lieutenant, was it Gallagher, Paul Gallagher, Captain PT. He told me this is where the body was found. So I used my devices to mark that location.
Okay, but before you used your devices, he just pointed someplace on the
Like,
ground and said
he's
he was
just,
about here, correct?
That's correct.
this guy is such an idiot. Like, all debris should matter. Like, that glass on the bumper, if it didn't come from the the freaking, the cup, wouldn't you find the source where that glass came from? Maybe when she ran into John O'Keefe's freaking car that morning that she went to go look for him, maybe you would look there, but what ifs?
Lieutenant Gallagher tell you that Lieutenant Gallagher never saw John O'Keefe in place at the scene? Did he say that?
No.
Sure didn't. So how would
Did
he
Lieutenant
know?
Gallagher tell you that the first officer on the scene estimated his body at being approximately 15 to 20 feet from the roadway?
No.
If he had told you that changed your diagram?
Objection.
Overruled.
He told me this is where he's found. I marked that location. That's all that was.
And you marked basically
It
every other
would,
piece of item.
though.
Sorry, it's a terrible question.
So in
Every
other
other
words,
item you marked based on
oh my God, it would change a lot of things. It would change so much. How much he was hit. I mean, how many miles per hour was he hit to go 10, 15 to 20 feet? Why there was no freaking skid marks? Why the vehicle didn't end up in the house or in the lawn? So much debris pattern, If the debris doesn't fit, you must acquit. The bumper, glass on the bumper that doesn't belong to the crime scene. A lot of shit matters. Scratches, can predate before the accident. Cup in hand. How the fuck is he supposed to hold on to a cup when he's hit at the fucking elbow? What, does it just go in his face and then nothing? And then he just stumbles back at 22 miles an hour? He would either go backwards or up on top of the vehicle. Dude. Because you say he lost a shoe, so he had to have gone flying. And you're marking him at 7 feet when nobody freaking knows where he was on the roadway. Nobody knows. You can't tell in dash cam videos. You can't tell in shit. You can somewhat see where they're sitting, where they are with him. Where their leaf blowing at was way farther up by the flagpole, like over yonder, you know, like. But because, you know, where they put the fucking stupid ass tail light, they had to say, oh, it was between here and here, so measure that way and it'll come out, right? And your test stream data is wrong because the 22 miles an hour that you're claiming was after they were backing up out of Karen's dad's freaking driveway to get on the fucking tow truck. That's what that data point was, dude. All of it would have been fucked. Your whole diagram's out the fucking window. And I said I was going to quit swearing. Damn it. Yeah.
A distance from where you were told John O'Keefe's body came to rest, correct?
Yes.
And that Lieutenant Gallagher is pointing at the ground and saying it's about here.
Correct.
Yeah, but he says they held on. He's the accident reconstructionist.
Was there a single member of the team that was out when you were being shown where the body came to rest? Was there a single member
And
of that
how
team
at
who actually
2:30,
said
how
they saw
at,
John O'Keefe's body?
how at 2:30 can you tell me that they knew he was hit by a freaking car when they didn't find tail light pieces until they found her freaking car or went and towed her car so they could hurry up and break the rest?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
From, what do you mean team? Canton PD?
Whoever was there, who was there with you when you started doing your measurements, etc.?
Lieutenant Gallagher. That dude.
Just for him?
And myself and I was training a trooper at the time. She was there.
You were training a trooper at the time?
Yes.
Okay, so it was my mistake. I assumed that there were several people out there. Just you and Lieutenant Gallagher.
Yes, that's why I was confused by the
Oh, you were training somebody? Oh, God, for fuck's sakes. You should never train anybody because you don't even know what the fudge you're doing. You still stand by your, well, it just did. His body it just did. The cup, it just did. His cell phone, it just did. Right? You don't know physics. You don't know kinematics. You don't know biomechanics. You don't know jack shit. How are you? Don't ever accident reconstruct any accident I may be in or my family may be in or any of my friends for that matter. Jeez Louise, we'd all be in for a hurting.
And again, Lieutenant Gallagher.
Hey, did you accident reconstruction Paul O'Keefe's accident, drunk driving accident maybe, or Chris Albert's drunk driving accident, or Chief Rafferty's pedestrian accident? Any of those? Because great. I mean, you're great. You would be great.
Didn't tell you that he never saw John O'Keefe's body in place.
No, I don't think so.
You did document in your report that the items that you noted on your diagram that we just looked at a few minutes ago, those were found by
Okay, how much longer do you got?
Yes.
I need
members of the CERT team located a sealed Nike sneaker that's noted on your report. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
You also indicated that, quote, in the same area, 2 red plastic pieces and 1 clear piece of plastic of a taillight was discovered.
Yes.
So your report is clear that in total, the items discovered by the CERT team on January 29th were a shoe, right?
Yes.
A partial glass cup broken, correct?
Well, was that on there? I can't remember if that's on their diagram or if that's what I was told at the scene, but yes,
Sure.
yes,
You knew that the cup was found.
yes,
You were told the cup was found.
yes,
And 3 pieces of plastic, 2 red, 1 clear.
yes,
Not 5 pieces of plastic, correct?
correct.
So that's
You then measured those items, is that right?
I didn't, what do you mean measure them? Like
Measured
at
them
the,
relative to John O'Keefe's
you don't know
final
anything,
place
Jackson. You don't know anything.
yes, I used their report to
Okay,
place
I'm
those items
still
onto
here.
my
I'm just
diagram.
going to sort.
So
Why is he
and
acting
I'm going to get to that
down?
question in just a second. I want to make sure that we walk through it sort of thought. Like, you then use some calculation, some tool or something to measure.
Because he's
distance.
caught.
Like, there's where
He's caught
I
in
assume John O'Keefe's body was. There's a fine rest place.
a
and use that as point A,
catch-22.
and
What
then
the
measure from
heck
there
does
and
he
go
do?
7 feet to where
He don't know what he's
or
doing.
The first red plastic piece was found. Right?
Yes,
Who told you where the pieces were found?
they were in Lieutenant Tully's.
He's caught up. I mean, he came out. Jackson came out swinging like on this cross. He came out swinging, and it put that dude in a chokehold. He's sitting there going, what? Like he knows nothing at this point. But yeah, Cold Pepsi. And this is who their accident reconstructionist was. That's why the ARCA experts were so detrimental to this case, because they knew way more than him. They actually knew physics, kinematics, and biomechanics. So, and they said the test stream data didn't need it because the reason why is because you don't know who did what, because even he's got the data points wrong. So he don't know what he's doing, and he was told to do a job. He doesn't want to mess it up, but he's kind of caught in a good chokehold. He don't even know what to say. Like he's just like no, my diagram. I stick by my diagram type shit. So it's just crazy.
Report. He put measurements in his report.
Okay, and you noted that the shoe was 9 feet.
Yes,
Put that in your diagram.
correct,
You noted that the glass cup was 1 foot from John O'Keefe's body, correct?
correct.
1 foot is not that long, right?
Yes, it was. They basically said I was found next to him.
Right.
Yes,
Like his
A piece of red plastic,
supervisor.
7 feet from John O'Keefe's body, correct?
He just
Correct.
got done saying who
Clear
sent
plastic
him.
piece, 10 feet from John O'Keefe's body, right?
yes.
And a red plastic piece, 12 feet from John O'Keefe's body, correct?
It just did is his answer. It just did.
What part of his body were you measuring from?
Like center of mass.
So he's 6'2".
Yes.
Did Lieutenant Gallagher tell you where his center
Okay,
mass was?
center mass, he would have freaking.
He said he was here, so I tried to put like where his
broken
head, where his feet, and try to measure the middle between those two.
So ultimately, because Lieutenant Gallagher was not at the scene when he was found, Lieutenant Gallagher had to sort of guess where the body was found, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You had no photographs of John O'Keefe in place, correct?
Correct.
There were no establishing shots, and there were no perspective shots, correct?
Correct.
There were no relative shots, meaning this is relative to that. I can measure that and figure out distances, correct?
What, like from the picture?
Yes. You know how that's done in science, right? You want to find out a relative position of something, so you take 2 or 3 or 4 shots. You know that something is never going to move, like, I don't know, a flagpole. You can measure from there.
Sure.
You get cross coordinates, right?
Sure.
Left and right, where the 2 coordinates match, that's where the item is, right?
Correct.
None of that was done, right?
From the pictures?
None of that was done to do your measurements.
I use, like I said, I use the measurements from. I measured on my diagram in itself, and I measured from those points off my diagram.
Right, but the starting point was a guess, wasn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you have to sort of guess at where you thought John O'Keefe's body was?
I didn't guess where his body was.
Did you guess at his center of mass?
Objection.
Did you guess?
I did not guess.
Next question.
You stated in your report that you Google mapped Miss Reed's path of travel. Well, let me ask you a different question. If I could withdraw that question with the permission.
Yes.
Your diagram has those arrows pointing at specific locations. Very, very specific, very thin arrows pointing, correct?
Yes.
If you start off with an incorrect assumption about where John O'Keefe's body was, right? Hypothetically, if you were to start off with an incorrect assumption where John O'Keefe's body was, every single item that you note on that diagram would then be off as well, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Is that true?
I mean, I guess hypothetically, depends on how off you want to be.
The answer is yes, correct?
Hypothetically.
You stated in your report that you Google mapped Miss Reed's path of travel January 29th, based on what you determined to be, quote, it's likely the two, and you said that it's, quote, it's likely that the two events, meaning the triggering events, occurred at the same time the Lexus was at 34 Fairview at the time of the collision, correct?
Yes.
The first triggering event was what? Was it a 3-point turn or a U-turn? I thought I heard you say both.
I guess it would be more, 3-point turns. Essentially, I guess it's a 3-point turn.
Okay.
Yes.
What did you say U-turn on Friday? I just want to heard that.
It could have been a U-turn. I mean, it's still turning around. So you got to make a U-turn when that's a 3-point turn or not, but it's still.
Okay, but I mean, not to be picky, but it's sort of my job.
Okay.
A U-turn, traveling in one direction. Turn, right? Turning the wheel, never changing gear. It's just reverse anything, just turn, right? A 3-point turn requires moving forward, stopping, changing gears, moving backward, stopping, changing gears, using the steering input, and moving off, correct?
Correct.
Well, those are two very different maneuvers, right? You agree?
It's, in a sense, I was trying to say she made a U-turn. Like you can say they made a U-turn. It's a 3-point turn. They're still making a U-turn. And I didn't mean it as like she literally had to make a direct U-turn. She was turning around. And obviously the diagram, but the trigger shows a 3-point turn.
Well, I mean, I guess you could have said reversing direction, right?
That would be a better way to say it, yes.
You didn't say that. You said U-turn. So are you changing your testimony from Friday that it was a 3-point turn, or could it possibly have been a U-turn?
The 3-point turn.
Okay, because you have evidence of the starting, stopping, changing gears, reversing, stopping, changing gears, turning.
That's correct.
So when you said U-turn, that was inaccurate.
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Let's get back to the path of travel when you began your analysis. How did you know what the Lexus's path of travel was that day?
I got the directions from Trooper Proctor.
And what did Trooper Proctor tell you in terms of the path of travel specifically? Starting point and an ending point, tell you the exact path of Lexus travel.
No, all I got was mostly just the addresses.
Okay, so if you've got 2 points on a map, and Trooper Proctor told you Lexus traveling from point A to point B, there are multiple ways to get from point A to point B. You agree with that, right?
Yes.
You picked one of those, right? The path of travel includes 3 ways, et cetera, right?
Yes.
But as you sit here, you don't know what her actual path of travel was. This could have been something different, right?
It could have been something. That's why I gave a range on my diagram.
Do you have any scientific evidence to establish what her actual path of travel is, or did you just guess at the path of travel?
I got the addresses from Trooper Proctor. I put them into the thing, and one of the possibilities of 36 miles. And that was after looking at all of them. At 36 miles is a possibility.
Right, understood. So that's what I'm trying to get to, Trooper Paul.
Okay.
That's one possibility. There's 36 miles.
Mhm.
One route of travel, right?
Correct.
There are other possibilities, right?
Yes.
So between and among the possibility that you picked and the other possibilities, you just sort of have to guess. And there's no science to it. You said, I'm going to pick that and put it in my report, right?
No, that's not how that worked.
Okay, why don't you tell me how that works?
Her odometer mileage on the car from
The best
the
part
download
you
and
have to tell them,
the time we had the vehicle shows
Just
36
wait.
miles.
just wait.
So when I plugged those addresses into Google, it came up
How
as
he
36
was
miles
hit.
as a possibility.
How he tells him,
And you knew that there was another route of travel to the same location, correct?
What do you mean?
how he tells him how John O'Keefe was hit and landed where he landed. Just wait, it's coming up. It is the funniest part of the whole thing.
There were alternative routes of travel to the same 2 points, from and to the same points, correct?
Yes. Yes.
You could have tried to extract the location data from the street's cell phone to determine the exact route of travel, correct?
I don't know. I don't have access to do cell phone extractions.
So that answers my next question. You did not even attempt to do that, did you?
No.
You did attempt to analyze the key cycles for the Lexus in order to determine placement of that vehicle. You just talked about that with Mr. Robert, right?
Yes.
I want to be clear for the jurors because most people have probably never heard of key cycles.
Here we go with the
A key cycle does not have any location data associated with it
Nope.
whatsoever, does it?
Sure does.
It just shows you when a vehicle is turned on, the ignition is on, and off. That's one cycle,
Yep.
correct?
No.
Tell me what I've done.
It could go
Key
to
cycle of the car doesn't have to be turned on.
Say that again.
It goes from off to run. Engine doesn't have to be started to off.
Understood. So if it turns on, well, every single ignition is a key cycle. Every time the engine turns on, that's absolutely a key cycle. Once it's turned off, right?
That gets recorded as an ignition cycle.
Right. So a key cycle can be an ignition cycle, but it doesn't have to be an ignition cycle. It also can be just turning the sort of accessory on, right?
Like the key cycles to turn the accessories on.
But it does. My question was when we started this conversation is it does not have any location data on it whatsoever.
Nope.
Correct.
All right. So when you drive the car, you walk out, get in the car, turn the ignition on, start to drive, it's your location, turn it off. That's one key cycle, right?
One ignition cycle.
But and I'm gonna use the word key cycles because you use the word key cycles in your report. That's what we're talking about.
I'm using them because that's how the trigger was read.
That's how what?
The triggers were read on the text string. That's how they read them. Key cycles.
Key cycles.
Yes.
I'm gonna use that phrase key cycle.
Okay.
We're talking about the same thing. It's an ignition on, ignition off cycle.
Doesn't have to be on.
So you mean the engine doesn't have to be turned on?
Correct.
But if you're seeing triggering events,
That's what I said. He's looking
That's why
like
we
a
trigger
scared little
Same
turtle.
triggering events. The car's in motion. What's that
He,
telling you?
he just wishes he could hide
The
his
ignitions on
hand.
or off.
The ignition's on.
That's what we get to. But it has no location data associated with whatsoever. It could be here, it could be in Wyoming. The car wouldn't know the difference. It's not to report the difference to you, correct?
On the key cycle,
Right.
on just the key cycle. The key cycle does not give out
Oh.
locations.
Oh my
Say that again.
God.
The key cycle does
Hey,
not
he
give a
said-
location.
Right.
Dude,
So your analysis is trying to go from a known key cycle that you can figure out and then work backward from there to try to figure out
Yep.
where the car was on a particular ignition cycle or key cycle, correct?
Yep.
I didn't use the key cycle to put it back.
Say that again?
I did not use the key cycle to place the car back in its location. The key cycles were, all I got from the key cycles is that they occurred close within proximity to the time we've had the vehicle, not basically saying that this was the location based off the key cycle.
Well, let's look at Exhibit 591.
you're not making this sense.
Okay.
He's up on key cycles.
You testified on Friday that this is a copy of the exhibit that was put in 591, this is part of the report, correct?
Yes, it is.
And this is the chart. It shows when, look at this arrow, that arrow indicates top and bottom where your testing occurred, correct?
Yes.
And you move over to the left, that is key cycle what?
1164.
So you've testified, and you turn the lights on. You're all right. I don't mind if that stays up. You can turn the lights on if I don't hurt anything. You stated in your report that there were, quote, 2 triggers recorded on odometer 12629 and key cycle 1162, correct?
Yes.
These events were prior to the testing triggers on
Which
odometer
are wrong.
12665/12666.
Because 1163 was when it got off the tow truck.
Yes.
1162 was when it got on the fucking
trigger
tow
events for
truck.
1162 going in reverse in order. 1162 comes before 1164. They're numerical. Is that right?
Yes.
Every single key cycle.
1161 was when Jen had the car, or
Correct.
when she took her from
3, 4, 5, 6, and then
her
move on,
dad's
right?
to die
Yes.
it.
So by the time you got the vehicle, there had been 1,164 key cycles on the history of that car, correct?
Correct.
And you knew, you put in your report, or you know, that the triggering events that you see on 1164, those are yours,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's your testing.
Yes.
And you were very clear that the triggers that you recorded, that you talked to Mr. Lally about, were two key cycles before that.
Yes.
Meaning ignition cycles, at least, right?
Yes, there were 2 key cycles.
Stated in your report, well, let me finish one other point. You said that the mileage difference between these 2 triggers and the triggers that occurred while testing was 36 miles. You just said that, right?
Yes.
And the key cycle difference was exactly
They picked the suspect and made the evidence fit to whatever suspect they chose. That's just what they did.
2 key cycles, right?
Yes.
1164, 1163, 1162. That's the triggering events, right?
That's correct.
You also reiterated in your report in paragraph 23, 24, 26, and 29, and
1162
also in this
was
exhibit.
when it
your
got
car's
in
report,
the
that
damn
triggers
tow
occurred in key
truck.
cycle 1162.
Yes.
You were assisted in your car's report. I think you mentioned Trooper Zach Clark. Is that right?
Yes.
Trooper Proctor assisted to a certain degree, correct?
Yes.
Trooper Lorini, Carol Lorini. Is that right?
Yes.
Also, Sergeant Sean Good, Canton PD, assisted as well, correct?
Yes, in a sense.
Did they all read the report before it was finalized?
No.
Did you have any supervisor read the report before it was finalized?
Yes.
And he agreed with the assessments in the report?
Yes.
So in summary, everybody that read the report and you who authored the report believe, and it's reflected in that report, that key cycle 1162 contained the 2 triggers that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That's the 3-point turn, I guess now a 3-point turn, right? Changing direction. And then
Yes.
the reverse at 24 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
And you even went on and testified to that exact thing under oath in front of the state grand jury, correct?
Yes.
He was
Wait,
in-
hold on. Under the tech streams?
On the key cycles.
Not
Yeah.
in grand jury.
Testified to it
under
on
his
direct
torso.
examination on Friday and again this morning.
Yes, correct.
And he wasn't on grass. He
If
was
your
on
testing occurred at key cycle 1164, that means you turned the engine on, ignition on. To start your
And
testing, correct?
when he went to the hospital, his core temperature was 80 degrees, meaning he was only out there for a couple hours, not 6 hours like they claimed.
Correct.
And that triggering event that we see up there at 1164 initiated your testing, all right?
Yes.
So that 1164 is where that's where there's no more unknowns, in other words. Right? You know exactly where the car is, who's in the car, who turned the car on, and what the triggering events were, and what they reflect. You did it, correct?
Correct.
It's you.
Yes.
So that would be the cornerstone, basically, of your entire analysis.
Say again.
The cornerstone, in other words, the one known that is immovable, it's immutable. Is 1164 began your testing. Is that right?
Objection.
Is that right? I'm going to allow the question.
Yeah, that's when the car was in state custody.
All right. So starting at 1164 and jumping backward, before you started your testing, you know the SUV had to be started, the ignition had to be turned over, and driven to the Sally Port in Canton at 5:31 p.m. from a tow truck on January 29th, correct?
I didn't know that.
Did or did not?
Did not know that.
Okay. Assuming that the car had to be started and put on a tow truck, that would be key cycle what?
I don't know how. I can't speak to the fact that recorded a key cycle at that time.
I can't.
I can't speak to the fact that we record a key cycle at that time.
It'd be
If the car was
11:62
turned
when
on
I got on
and
the
driven
tow.
onto a tow truck, would that be a key cycle?
I don't know because these keys record different ways, so I can't speak to how or why it did not record on there. All I can speak to is that those are the key cycles. The odometer mileage is more what I was going after on this whole
You're
thing.
full of shit. That's why you're
Oh, you
stuttering
just said-
Stanley.
Unequivocally. When a car is turned on and then turned off, there's a key cycle.
I said when the car without the ignition on, that's a key cycle.
Right.
That's correct.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. When it's turned on, when the engine turns on.
That's the definition of what it is. I can't speak to why it didn't go on, why it did not record.
What a dummy.
Well,
He's not gonna back down,
let's
Josh.
talk about the ignition cycles.
As dumb as he looks, he's not gonna back
Okay.
down because his
Obviously,
his
the
boss
car
has
had
told him
get
not
Canton
to.
PD because you saw it there, correct?
Correct.
Assume for purposes of my question, the car was turned on and there's a video of it turning on, driving up onto a flatbed tow truck.
Yes.
That would be ignition cycle. I mean, use your word. Key cycle, ignition cycle, 1163, correct?
Again, ignition cycle, key cycles are two different things.
Which word do you
No,
want to use?
that would be
If you want
11.
to talk about key cycles, key
You,
cycles. You want to talk about ignition
Jackson.
cycles? It's ignition cycles when the vehicle gets turned on. A key cycle does not mean to be turned on.
would
But every
begin
single
when they
ignition
got
cycle
it off the
includes a key
tow
cycle.
truck
You
and
can't
they
have an
drove it
ignition
into
cycle
the
without a key
pallet
cycle.
for it.
Well, if you want to talk about this, use the key cycle ignition cycles. I'm trying to make sure this gets out. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure that this gets put out the correct way.
Well, yeah, your diagram
Every
is
ignition
not
cycle
put out the
includes
correct way,
A key
dummy.
cycle, correct?
In a sense,
By definition, it has to.
it doesn't have to. They record multiple different ways.
You can have an ignition cycle without a key cycle.
I don't know how it recorded, but it could happen.
Right.
Explain that. How could that possibly happen?
Because the key cycles when it turns on.
And then the next, I mean, and who they're gonna have as their reconstructionist is his boss this next time. So let's see what he does.
Engine running and then turns off.
Okay, so work with me here.
Ignition cycles when it turns on, engine running for 2 seconds, and then comes off.
So
Or the 2 seconds is not on long enough, it might not record.
let's ignore the 2 seconds.
Okay.
That's not what we're doing. Right.
See,
assume
now
that-
you're
that
making
that's
up. Now you're making up stories. I thought every time you put it on, it was a key cycle. You dummy. Now you're saying it has to be more than 2 seconds. Turning it on and off is more than 2 seconds, even if you don't go to run.
Halfway on, the electricity is on. It's like it used to be called ACC.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That's a key cycle, correct?
For that intents and purpose, yes. This vehicle's not a key cycle. It's not a thing.
Keep turning.
Okay.
And
You
that turns
just
the
got
engine on,
it.
right?
Now
Then
it's
John,
not a
correct.
key cycle. You just got done saying every time it turns on, it doesn't have to go to run, but every time the key switches to either accelerate or run, which is on, run, you know how it goes on. It's a key cycle. Oh my God.
Yes. Well, then it turns off.
Single ignition cycle necessarily includes the precursor key cycle, correct? Even though every key cycle might not include an ignition cycle. Do you agree with that?
In that scenario, yes.
Fine. With that definition, I want to talk about ignition cycles because I don't get confused about accessories. Just assume the engine.
Okay.
turns on, right?
Okay.
If you started your testing at 1164, then if the engine was turned on, thereby indicating initiating a key cycle, driving the car onto a flatbed truck and then hauling it over to Canton PD, that would be key cycle 1163.
No,
That's correct.
1162,
Then
Jackson.
going backward from there,
1163 would have
if the
been
SUV
it
was,
going in the
I'm sorry,
Sally
let
Port.
me add one event that I just forgot. It had to get off the tow truck in Canton and be driven into the Sally Port.
There
Did
you
see
go.
that video?
There you go.
No.
Being driven in?
No.
If there was a video showing that the car was actually driven into the Sally Port, that would necessarily be a key cycle, correct?
Yes.
Possibly.
Okay, so that would be a key
Not
cycle.
possibly,
My
yes.
mistake, I was missing one, right?
Okay.
Before that, if the car was turned on and driven onto the flatbed to get to Canton,
Yes.
that would be key cycle 1162 in order, correct? We're going back,
It's possible.
right? Before that, if the car was started and the car was driven from One Meadows Avenue to Karen Read's
Dighton.
parents' home in Dighton, that would be another key cycle 1161, correct?
Yes.
Very possible.
Before that, if the SUV
No,
was
not
started and
very
driven
possible.
by Miss Reed
It is.
from the garage at John
For me.
O'Keefe's house to Jennifer McCabe's house at 5:07 in the morning, that would be another key cycle, correct? 1160. Is that right?
Mhm.
It's possible.
And before that, if the SUV was started and driven by Ms. Reed to the waterfall, from the waterfall to 34 Fairview at approximately 12:15 a.m., that would be another key cycle, 11:59, right?
It's possible.
It's actually 11:58, but hey, that's
I want to be clear. The reason that these numbers skip in your diagram, they don't go directly in order, right? Not every single number is in order on this left-hand column, because this is only a diagram of when triggering events occur, right?
Yes.
Something unusual about the operation of the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
It's clear that from the data, there was no triggering event at key cycle 11:59, was there?
No.
boom.
So assuming the driving events that I just told you, right? Assuming for purposes of my question, that the driving events started at 11:59, driving over to 34 Fairview from the waterfall. Then driving at 5:07 in the morning over to Jen McCabe's house, 11:60. Then driving to Dyton, her parents' house, 11:61. Then the car being seized in Dyton by Trooper Proctor, 11:62. Then the car being taken off the flatbed and driven into Sallyport, Canton, 11:63. Your testing starts at
In disbelief.
11:64.
I don't blame her.
That would mean that at 11:62, that key cycle would include the time in which Trooper Proctor had possession of that car.
Yep.
Correct?
No.
Assuming my hypothetical.
Your hypothetical?
Yes.
If that's hypothetically how it
It's
works,
not
then
a
yes.
hypothetical, it
If
is.
that's hypothetically how it works, then yes.
Oh my God, dude. Just
On June 9, 2022, you were asked by a grand jury whether you knew or had done any scientific testing to determine the
she's
distance
like,
and
you
survival
dirty
of actual
little
travel
weasel.
struck by a vehicle. Remember that?
Not that specifically. Not that way.
Do you remember
Oh my
answering
God,
that you had not,
dude.
based on just paraphrasing, that you had not done all the, you hadn't finished your report yet?
Why don't you show him? He said he didn't remember it that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take a look at middle of the page. Your answer starts at about line 12. The question above it is probably informative. You have that in mind?
Yep.
May I quote?
Yes.
Does that remind you that you were asked by a grand jury if you could calculate how far a body would move having been struck by a vehicle?
Yes.
And you indicated, quote, yeah, there's certain calculations you can do with that. Would figure out if you say the car backed up, hit somebody, and then they go a certain amount of distance, and it's based on miles per hour, the speed of the vehicle, the striking vehicle, and stuff. Remember saying that?
Yes.
What do you mean by stuff?
I don't know.
And
You said
stuff.
the calculations would be based on miles per hour and stuff. Did you ever do any stuff?
Did you do
Test that.
stuff?
Grand jury's question.
No, we cannot calculate anything from this collision.
Say that one more time.
We cannot calculate anything from this collision.
Who's we?
I'm making that's our me, the role we.
Well, you know John O'Keefe's weight, right?
What's that?
You know John O'Keefe's weight, 117 pounds, right?
Yes.
Do you know that?
I don't know his weight now.
You know the weight of the vehicle?
Yes.
What's the weight of the vehicle, gross weight?
What's the gross weight? I think it's approximately 7,300 pounds.
Were you able to calculate the mass of the vehicle?
I did not calculate the mass of the vehicle.
Well, you told the grand jury you were planning on doing that kind of stuff to calculate how far a person would travel being struck at that speed with a car that weight. You didn't do those calculations?
It's called physics.
No, because the calculations were
Yeah.
vastly underestimate the speed of the vehicle.
You testified, again, my report isn't done yet. I'm going to look into it. I'm looking into all that stuff. End quote, correct?
Yes.
There's that word again. It's been more than 2 years since that statement at the grand jury. Is your report finished?
Yes, it is.
Did you engage in any of those calculations?
I looked into it. This type of collision I would not be able to use the formulas for this type of collision.
Let's talk about those formulas. How would you calculate how far a body at rest would travel after being struck by an object in motion? How would you calculate that?
In pedestrian collisions, I use a Searle formula, Searle throw formula.
What formula?
Searle.
What's that mean?
It's a type of formula that would use for calculation of post-impact
So
speeds of pedestrians.
that includes certain principles of physics to calculate that, right?
What do you mean?
I'm sorry.
What do you mean by certain forms of physics?
There would be physics calculations that would be required to figure out how far a body
Do you
at rest
don't
would
know
move
how to
having been
use
struck
physics?
by an object in motion.
It's math.
Yeah, I guess you could say though.
All right. Can
By
you describe to us
weight?
exactly what calculations you would need to employ to determine how far a body at rest would travel, having been struck by an object in motion?
So in this scenario, in this collision, it's more of a side swipe. So he did not ascertain he did not get enough speed of the vehicle, post impact with the vehicle to be able to calculations. His center of mass was offset from the vehicle. So we would vastly underestimate his speed. So that's why I did not get the formula. If he was more in line with behind the vehicle, he would have been projected forward, and using that projection forward, he would have had to get more closer to the actual speed of the vehicle during that post impact travels.
Stuck on the side. You know his arm would be gone, right? You know that, right?
Presumed.
Presumed by you. You didn't see how he was in, did you?
Based on the evidence, it appeared to be a side swipe.
That's your opinion.
That's just reading evidence.
You're saying that the principles of physics as we know them today in modern mathematics is thwarted by a side swipe?
Objection.
Is that what you're saying?
The calculations that are out there, you can get a speed or just underestimate the speed.
You would have to know what the initial momentum of the object is that's in motion, correct?
Of what object?
The truck. Paul.
I would have to know that speed.
Yeah, you have to know what the initial momentum is, not speed, momentum. There's a difference.
Okay.
Right? Do you agree with that?
No.
You wouldn't have to calculate what the initial momentum is of the object in motion to determine the distance of the body at rest would move?
Well, in that sense, that's what we're talking about. I'm trying to find the speed of the vehicle. That's usually what we're trying to do.
Right, okay, well, let's put the speed of the vehicle aside. Let's talk about initial momentum. What's the formula for calculating initial momentum?
There's different types of momentum formulas.
Well, there's actually one type of momentum
Oh
formula.
my God, dude.
To calculate momentum.
Objection.
I got a headache.
Sustained.
To calculate momentum, there is a
So sustained. Ask it differently.
Isn't it true, Paul, that there is a singular calculation for determining initial momentum? That is P equals M times V, where P is that. M is mass, you multiply that by velocity. Is that right? Pretty simple.
You wouldn't use that in a pedestrian collision.
Oh, because the pedestrian's somehow magically out of the realm of physics.
Objection.
Sustained.
Is a pedestrian out of the realm of physics and calculations?
No, it's the weight differential between the pedestrian and the vehicle.
So if the vehicle is too heavy and the body is too light, you can't calculate the initial momentum of the vehicle?
Yes.
Got it. Where'd you learn that?
It's in my math class. Since we don't use momentum for a vehicle.
Math class?
The math, the crash construction classes I have taken.
Got it. Would you need to apply the theory of conservation of momentum?
Well, you need
Calculating
some new
this
math.
data.
Well, you need some new
Do I need to calculate conservation of momentum?
reconstruction
conservation of momentum.
classes.
Yes.
to
You know what that is?
understand that.
There's an equation for that as well, right?
Yes.
You know what that is?
Not off the top of my head, but yes.
Come on, get to the point where he fucking
Based on the
does
basic
the
principle of
pirouette.
physics, is the
Get
total
to the
momentum
point.
of the collision greater or less than the total momentum after the collision? Total momentum before the collision, is it greater or less than the total momentum after the collision? Basic question.
What type of collision?
Paul, they're exactly equal in all respects under the principles of physics, right? That's the theory of the conservation of momentum. Momentum doesn't change. It's
Yes.
transferred from one body to another.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Why did you say that to jurors?
Objection.
Sustained.
Paul, if you were qualified to quote look into all this stuff, you would probably know these answers, wouldn't you?
Objection.
Sustained.
All this stuff.
Are there any other calculations that you need to figure out the stuff that you're talking to about with the grand jury?
Objection.
Sustained.
How about calculating would be John O'Keefe's body, sir? Object
I don't,
that you claim was flying through the air 30 feet.
objection.
Sustained.
How about calculating the displacement using kinematic equations? Did you able to do that?
The displacement of the body?
Oh my God.
In order to calculate how far the body would move based on the mass of the object striking the body, could you use displacement using kinematic equations?
So like I said before, the side swipe, he would not have gotten 100% of the vehicle, 100% of the speed of the striking vehicle. It would have vastly underestimated this vehicle. You couldn't hit a person and side swipe them and spin them off to the side and have that and get a speed from those calculations.
So you're saying that the discipline of physics cannot figure out how far John O'Keefe's body would move, but you personally figured out that he would have flown now somewhat or been projected somewhat 30 feet.
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you saying the principles of physics are incapable of determining with the proper calculations how far John O'Keefe's body would have moved given the collision at issue?
Objection.
Is that what you're saying, Trooper?
No.
Training's question?
Well, you just said because it was a side swipe.
Stop
these calculations-
objecting,
these
Lolly.
calculations are inaccurate, right?
This
I'm
is
saying it would
your
underestimate the speed and the distance.
The truth is, Trooper Paul, you have no idea what all these physics calculations mean, do you?
Objection.
Sustained.
You've not been trained in physics formally, have you?
Yes.
You have been,
It's incorporated into the classes.
right? You have a few classes. You use the word physics, but you haven't been formally trained in physics, have
Objection.
Sustained.
you? You haven't been formally trained in kinematics, correct?
It's in the aspects of all our crash reconstruction classes.
You haven't been formally trained and hold no degrees in biomechanics, do you?
I do not have a degree in biomechanics.
In fact, basically what you did in this case was calculated initial cycles, and you got those wrong, right?
Objection.
Sustained. Come on, Mr. Jackson, ask the appropriate part of the question, you'll get it.
Let me ask you this. Based on your reconstruction, nearly 2-year investigation, exactly how was that taillight shattered? Explain it to us.
Here
How
we
does the
go.
tail light? What do
Here
you?
we go.
It gets, so the tail light in this case was shattered when it was struck John O'Keefe's arm.
Exactly what part of his arm?
It, based on what I saw for his injuries, was from the upper part of his arm down.
Was his arm out? It just struck the arm on a hinge? Was it in front of him? You did the reconstruction?
It looked,
Here's exactly how his body was positioned when he was struck by that.
so it looks like his arm was more kind of like this. So I can try to get that.
You're indicating out by his side.
Yes.
All right. And the taillight would have struck his arm, right?
Yes.
Not his torso.
Yes.
Okay. So the full mass, full weight of that truck hit him basically at the elbow. Is that right?
It
I said
better.
that from upper part of the arm.
Boy.
Yeah.
Elbow and biceps.
I didn't see anything that shows an indication that this lower torso was struck, but
Okay. So his torso,
it's not saying it could not have been a possibility, but I just didn't see anything.
so his torso was spared from being hit, but the arm took the brunt, full force of the vehicle, correct?
Like arm and shoulder. Yes.
And you said he then did a spin, like a sort of pirouette.
Why isn't
He got
there
spun
no
around
bruises?
possibly the way it struck, it looked like it could have gone turned around counterclockwise.
Okay. So if it turns around counterclockwise, is he turning around in the air?
Here it
counterclockwise?
goes. Here it
Yes.
goes.
Initially.
So he gets hit on the upper biceps, shoulder area, and down to the forearm
Yes.
by an unbroken taillight, right?
Yes.
In other words, it's nice and smooth. No shards of plastic or anything broken at the time that made contact with his arm, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how does his arm get up?
Because when his arm struck the tail light then cracked, and as the car driving past him, the tail light could scratch it.
Got it. So it's hit by the car, not his torso, just the arm. The taillight cracks, and as it passes by, his arm stays with it long enough to get striations, those scratches that we see, those lacerations. I'm sorry, those abrasions, that we see, right?
In a sense, yes.
And at the same time, he does a pirouette and flies 30 feet to his final point.
I don't know if he did a pirouette.
Well, I'm using the word pirouette. He spun around.
He started rotating counterclockwise. I don't know how far he ran counterclockwise, but he started rotating. According to that, we're pushing to rotate counterclockwise. Whether he went counterclockwise all the way to his back toward the ground, it seems like most likely possibility.
Did you account for the fact that his arm is on a hinge?
Is what? Say again?
Did you account for the fact in this scenario that you just told the jurors that his arm is on a hinge?
On a
On his
hinge.
shoulder?
Okay.
Right? So his arm got hit. Did his arm just swing?
I said arm and shoulder area, so his arm could have been considered part of it.
Even if his shoulder got the upper point to his upper biceps.
Mhm.
Right? There's no injuries on his shoulder. Not a single one. Not even a bruise. Right?
Like I said, it looked like to me it was from up here. I don't know how far I can up back here, but it was up here.
Well,
So
you're the one that talked about his injuries on his arm.
yes.
That's limited to about mid biceps, about mid forearm. Right?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
No injuries on the shoulder. No injuries on the torso. No injuries on this. No injuries on that. Right? Is that right?
Yes.
So your theory is you got hit on the arm,
I
took the brunt of the
wonder if
force
he's
from the
done
taillight on the
stuff
arm,
since
stayed with
this
the
trial.
vehicle long enough for the taillight to explode, basically the shatter. Then the striations get on his arm, abrasions. Does a pirouette, spin, counterclockwise, and flies 30 feet in the air to his point of rest.
Yeah. I have to probably go faster than that though.
I just said he hit his head on the curb.
I said that's one of the possibilities of when you look at the roadway as he gets spun around kind of clockwise. It's a possibility that the curb is there. Any blunt force object on the ground the ground is pretty blunt.
Well, except in your scenario that you just told us, he flew through the air onto the light dusting of snow, grass, and dirt.
I didn't say through the air.
Say that again?
I didn't say he got thrown through the air.
Okay, I'll use your word. He got projected.
Projected just doesn't mean it's not incorporating just the throw. Project just means you get pushed forward. There's two parts of that. There's the air, then there's the ground. Like I said earlier, the tumbling, the rolling, whatever that part of the crash would happen. Projecting is just what we call what happens to a pedestrian post impact of the crash.
Okay, so a couple questions. If his arm, elbow, brunt, that entire amount, how do you account for the fact that he didn't suffer a broken bone?
I don't know.
How do you account for the fact that he didn't have a fracture?
Exactly.
Sustained.
How do you account for the fact that he didn't even have a bruise?
That's sustained too.
No reproach.
Yes.
They're not gonna let him get it in. But anyways, this shit is fucking funny as fuck. Okay, next we're gonna hear the text messages from the douchebag that got her phone. Extraction.
May I inquire?
Yes.
The truth is, Paul, you know, having investigated auto pedestrian accidents in the past, that John O'Keefe's injuries do not look anything like a automobile pedestrian accident. Do that.
Yes, I did.
Isn't it true, Trooper Paul? You came to these opinions and conclusions because Trooper Proctor told you to come to these opinions and conclusions in furtherance of his investigation.
That is not true.
That's why you have these opinions and conclusions that just don't make sense, correct?
That is not true.
You're just trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Action. Sustained. All right, jurors will take morning recess.
Do you not know
Oh, that's
confirmation bias?
Now, I'll see counsel at sidebar about scheduling.
Okay. Okay. Let's go here.
I do.
And with respect to that, what, if any, time at those conferences did you spend dedicated to ascertaining the available?
Oh, wait. Hold on. We gotta see about this.
There's anything that's on that motherboard. So, like I said, once the memory chips are taken off, it's going to destroy the board.
And as far as that chip-off process, who, if anyone, was present with you, or who, if anyone, assisted you in removing that or conducting that chip-off process with regard to the motherboard from the entertainment system from the defense theater?
I'm sorry, at the time that we actually did the chip off?
Yes.
Yeah. It was myself, AG Speak, and Maggie Gaffney.
And who is AG Speak?
AG Speak is has his own forensic company, I guess you could call it, for Burla. I could consider an expert in the field, former California Highway Patrol officer that exclusively handled stolen cars.
And who is Ms. Gaffney?
She was the defense's expert. She's the one who actually did the chip off at Klein Heat and taking the chips off in our presence. And she probably works for, I'm sorry, the name of the company escapes me at the moment.
Now, with respect to the information that you, Ms. Gaffney, and Mr. Speak were able to remove pursuant to that chip-off process, what, if any, usable information were you able to glean from that?
As I was told by AG, there was no data that was recovered off the infotainment system or the telematics module from the chip off.
And as far as Ms. Gaffney, did you have any conversation with her as far as the information that she was able to glean or read or decipher?
No, once she did the chip off, I've not spoken with her since.
You have a moment, John?
Yes.
Now, Marino, at some point in late January, early February, were you provided with some a laptop and/or desktop computers from the home of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
And what, if anything, did you do with those?
One was a Dell laptop, the other was a HP all-in-one desktop. I removed the hard drives from both systems and used.
Objection, may be seen, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oh man, I was hoping for the part where he says, "Oh, kill me."
Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 48.
Okay.
Okay, here's the text messages that supposedly says that she's
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
The first page is Facebook Messenger chats between Karen Read and John O'Keefe.
And what's contained in there is a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed from the extraction from Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Yes, it is.
And specifically with reference to those chats between Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant, you also reviewed that material from the defendant's phone as well.
Yes, I did.
The material that you reviewed from the defendant's phone, is that consistent with what you observed in Mr. O'Keefe's?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, with court's permission, if I...
I fucking love that part, dude. These are supposed to be the I want to murder him, but he says on the stand underneath his breath, "Kill me." If that doesn't tell you, oh, that this is so bullshit that I don't
I can
know.
request certain portions of what's been marked as Exhibit 48 being published to the jury as we go through them.
Okay.
So here we go with these.
Sir, if I can start you out on page 1.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I could have that up. Now, with respect to what's up on the screen, the portion that you can see, do you recognize it, sir?
Yes, I do.
I've got it for you as Exhibit 48.
Yes.
Now, within this particular, from the perspective of this is from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So there will be blue bubbles and green bubbles, is that correct as well?
Yes.
And so who,
Okay,
as
let
far
me.
as the blue bubbles are concerned, who's speaking in that?
The blue bubbles will be from Ms. Reed, and the green bubbles are from Officer O'Keefe.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could please scroll down. Now, with respect to what's contained on this page 1 at the bottom, if you could.
It says
read the
hello.
date and the time, and,
John
indicate
O'Keefe
who's
says
speaking and
hi.
what is said there, sir.
Yeah, so the blue bubbles is Karen Read and 1/28/2022 at 3:30 p.m. Hello. John says hi at 3:35 p.m.
Sorry, Mayor,
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are the Facebook ones.
I'm sorry. What's contained in Exhibit 48 is the entirety of the chat report from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I apologize. Showing you none of that. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be, sir?
These are the native chats, native messages from John O'Keefe and Karen Read.
So these are just specifically broken down as far as the chats between Mr. O'Keefe's phone and Ms. Reed's phone, correct?
Correct.
And as far as your review of both of the extractions from both of those phones, the material contained within Mr. O'Keefe's phone is consistent with the material contained in the defendant's phone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, you mean she
No,
didn't
Mayor Pro-
delete nothing like Jen McCabe did? Wow, imagine that.
Yes. If that could be returned to the witness, Your Honor, if we could, with court's permission, if we could publish that.
Yes.
But she's the murderer. She didn't delete any of her messages? Wait. Okay, let's go.
And now, True Agreement, do you recognize what's up on the screen as the next exhibit, sir?
Oh, wait. Hold on. That says Cellbrite, but I thought Cellbrite was not right. I thought Cellbrite was it was wrong. Oh, wait, because you're doing it, it's right. Okay, got it. But if the defense finds something through Cellbrite on somebody's phone, it's completely wrong. Okay. All right,
Yes.
Jen.
And again, from this first page, if you could, the blue bubble is from Ms. Reed, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
See how they like to use it as a sword and a shield? They can't do that. They can't do that. If it works for you, it works for them. Sorry, Jen McCabe, but here they use Cellbrite and it came up just fine. But okay, yeah, we're supposed to believe that yours didn't. All right, cool.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, again.
Yeah,
from this first
really
page
hurt
as
me
far as,
this time.
date,
John says,
time,
I'm
who's
sorry.
speaking,
This has been an issue
Uh,
with me for
At 9:49 a.m., Karen says, "You really hurt me this time." 10:02 a.m. I'm sorry. This is sorry, I cannot read. I'm sorry. This has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to see everyone else in their life do things for them, and I'm forced to always be the bad guy. At 10:09 a.m., Karen says, "I am not the same as everybody else. Most of the time, I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you and what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gone to this point with me, but I'm just trying to try my hardest. You made the point, made your point, and continue to beat me down. Physically, I'm falling apart and trying to get answers and help."
If I could stop you there, sir. If I could direct your attention to. Michael. Sir, if I could direct you to page 5.
Okay.
Sorry, bottom of page 4.
All right.
And starting with the blue bubble on the bottom of page 4, again, if you could indicate as to who's
See,
speaking. what is
they're
said.
just going to cherry pick through messages.
Karen says to John at 1:21 p.m. on the 28th, "Maybe you can call someone."
If you could continue on through page 5, sir.
On the 28th at 1:46 p.m., John says, "Like who?" And 1:47 p.m., "What time are you coming here?" And then there is at 2:05, there's a message but no content.
And the next message at 2:06, sir.
Yes, 2:06 from Karen. "I don't know what time. Feel kind of out of it. Just trying to clear my head." 2:06 p.m. John writes back, "Okay." 2:06 p.m. again. Karen says, "Text me later when you guys settle in later." Sorry, text me when you guys settle in later. John says, "Sure," at 2:06 p.m. again. Karen says at 2:16, I feel pretty shitty about this. Feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said.
If I could ask you to continue on to page 7, sir.
At 2:17 p.m., John says, not sure what else you want me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it. Karen replies back at 2:17, things in my own life have been difficult too, you know. John writes back at 2:17, I know. At 2:25 p.m., tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. From Karen.
You could continue on to page 8, sir.
At 2:25, John responds back, nope. Things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? That was at 2:26. At 2:29, he writes, kids are here, not in the mood to talk.
Now does the defendant respond to that at the bottom of page 8?
So you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying, and you keep treating me like this. At 2:29 p.m.
Understandable.
If I could direct you to the next page 9.
She has other options.
Mr. Reed says, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning, and you whack me in the face with a pillow. At 2:29. At 2:30, she says, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about? When we talk about the future, so why don't you just admit you're not into it so much anymore? At 2:30, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was at 2:30, John says, not how it went down, but okay.
Now does Ms. Reed respond to that?
Can you please admit your head is out of the game with us?
If you could, sir, please continue on to page 10.
At 2:32 p.m., sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. From John. And then John again at 2:32. Oh my God, stop calling.
Stop you there for just a moment, sir. With regard to January 28th, you were also able to extract a report specifically in regard to calls received by Mr. O'Keefe on that day.
Yes, I was.
On that date into the next day of January 29th.
Yes.
Approach, Ron.
Yes.
See, they make her look like the bad guy, but you know, he wasn't an angel himself. Like it doesn't. To me, this doesn't scream I'm a murderer. It just don't.
Marino showing the document.
Okay.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, it's John O'Keefe's call log.
And that's the entirety of the call log from January 28th into 29th. Is that correct?
Yes, from 28th at 9:19 a.m. to the 29th at 6:03 a.m.
Let's see what.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
I'm going to introduce the business. Good. Sure.
Okay, I'm going to freeze.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
Marino showing you another document. Assessor, review that when we finish. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is Karen Reed's call log from January 29th at 12:33 a.m. to January 29th at 6:03 a.m.
And those are specifically calls between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
May I approach, General?
Yes.
I'm about to seek to introduce the next exhibit. No chair. Now, Trooper Guarino, from the text messages that you were just testifying from, Mr. O'Keefe indicates OMG stopped calling at 2:32 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, from your review of those call logs, how many times did the defendant call Mr. O'Keefe on January 28th from approximately 9:19 a.m. to about 2:58 p.m.?
There's 18 calls from 9:19 to 2:59 p.m.
Those calls are listed within those records as various as far as rejected, or missed, or answered, or things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
How many of them are rejected?
11.
How many of them are missed?
4.
And how many are answered?
3.
Now, following that text message at 2:32 p.m. from Mr. O'Keefe, the defendant asking her to stop calling him, does the defendant keep calling?
Yes, she does.
And at some point, does Mr. O'Keefe call Ms. Reed back?
Yes, at about 3 p.m. on the 28th. Double check.
Thank you. May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
Mr. Green, I can take each of the call logs. I want you to hold on a second.
Okay.
Now, so if I can turn your attention back to page 10 on the text messages. With respect.
Okay, so Mr. Lally, when you put your head down and when you walk away, we can't hear you. And so there won't be a record of this. So you have to keep your voice up.
I will do, Your Honor. My
Well,
apologies.
you just said you just put your head down and your voice went down. So keep your voice up. It's really important you do so.
Trooper Green, I'll turn your attention back to page 10 of the text messages. Let's read from Ms. Reed's response to Mr. O'Keefe at 2:32.
Yes, so 2:32 p.m. She says, "Why would you start with me this morning?" And then followed up by 2:33, "You're setting me up to fail."
If I could turn your attention to page 11 and ask you to continue from there.
Ms. Reed says, "You started a number of fights from your end." John, and that's at 2:33. 2:33, John writes back, "I've explained it a few times already. Not doing it again."
And how does the defendant respond to that?
So you're not into this anymore. And then John says, "Not into fighting all the time." Correct. That's at 2:34 p.m.
If I could turn your attention to the top of page 12.
Yes, 2:34. Ms. Reed says, "If you tell me you're interested in someone else, you'll never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world." John writes back that there's no content at 2:34. And then at 2:34, she says, "Then stop starting with me."
How does Mr. O'Keefe respond to that?
At 2:34, he writes back, "I'm not answering. Stop calling."
And if I could turn your attention to the top of page 13.
Ms. Reed says, "Can you please answer after how you treated me earlier?" John responds back at 2:35, "Kaylee is right here." Ms. Reed says, "You're starting a rage with me out of nowhere, and then you tell me you're sick of fighting with me." At 2:35. She writes at 2:38, "I'm going to grab a drink in a bit."
If I could direct you to the top of page 14, sir.
She says, "Can you answer, please?" At 2:38. He writes back at 2:39, "No, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're going drinking, but have fun." Karen writes back at 2:40, "Seeing if you want to meet me later. Can you please call me?" Right after that.
And again, if I could direct you to the top of page 15.
John writes back at 2:40, "Have to take him to the doctor. He has practice." Ms. Reed writes back, "Yeah, 5 minutes." John writes back at 2:43, "My father just walked in." Karen writes back, "Okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes?" At 2:44.
The top of page 16, sir.
2:44, John writes back, "Not right now." Karen writes back, "I'm there when anyone else needs me." At 2:44. 2:46, "Yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for a minute."
And the last one from that page, sir.
Yeah. 2:47, "I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into things. And if you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail."
So if I could draw your attention to page 42. And sir, if I could ask you to start reading from the top of page 42.
At 7:41 p.m., Karen writes, "Okay, let me know if you end up leaving." John writes back at 7:42, "Why? Now you're not coming?" Karen writes back, "I'm waiting for the plumber. Actually think he's in the driveway." 7:42. John says, 7:43, "We're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves." Karen writes back at 7:43, "He's not going home after." John writes back at 7:43, 8 on a Friday. "He may have to get Michael. And you have a plumber coming over at 8. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck." And that was at 7:44.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct your attention to page 49.
Okay.
If I could have page 49, sir.
8:29 p.m. Yeah, but he lives right down the road. John writes back at 8:30, "Karen, the storm is going to be intense. Can't drive." 8:30, she writes back, "Okay, well, if he can't, he can't." John writes back, "I'll do it Monday." Karen responds at 8:31, "I better not still have this problem on Monday." John writes back, "Plan on being there." Karen writes back at 8:32, "I'd like to know I could take a hot shower here if I need to." John writes back, "Figured you'd be in Kansas until Monday."
If I could direct you to the top of next page 51.
"John, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing." Karen writes back at 8:33, "I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it." And then says, "You've said so yourself for probably a year now." And John writes back at 8:33, "Blizzard tomorrow. Nobody's going anywhere."
Sir, if I could direct you to the top of page 52.
Okay. Karen says, "Maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early AM." That's at 8:35. And again, 8:35, "I'll head up there in a few minutes. Let me know if you leave." John replies back, "Sure." And then the next one's not until 12:55 AM on the 29th. "I'm going home."
And the "I'm going home" is from the defendant. 12:55 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if I could direct your attention to the top of page 53.
Yes. At 12:55 again. "See you later." At 1:02, "Your kids are cooking alone." 1:29, 1:04 a.m. "I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone."
Thanks, sir.
This is when
Yes.
she got back to the house
Can I see counsel at sidebar about
and was
scheduling?
upset.
You are.
From your document, sir. Recognize that.
Yes, these are Karen Read and Aaron O'Keefe phone call.
And what is contained in that is that fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed conducting the extraction of the defendant's phone with regard to the communications with Karen O'Keefe.
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Okay. There's no objection, Ms. Dina, right?
Basically, she's not staying at the house by herself. With her, like,
Very sorry, Madam Clerk.
I get it.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Nothing screams, I want to do you in.
I'm showing you what's previously been marked in Exhibit 51 and 52. That's if you recognize those.
Yes, these are phone calls between Karen Read and Katie Camerano. And 52 is chats between Karen Read and Katie Camerano.
May I approach this retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
What's contained in those Exhibits 51 and 52 is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed during the extraction of the material from the defendant's phone.
Yes.
Oh my God, she didn't delete anything? How dare her? How dare her not do what Jen McCabe did?
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, showing you what's marked as Exhibits 94 and then 95.
Yes. Sorry. They are chats between Karen Read and Jen McCabe, text messages. And 95 is Karen Read and Jen McCabe phone calls.
And again, what's contained in those records for you is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the defendant's phone during the course of your extraction of materials from her phone.
Yes.
I approach the retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes. So these are already in evidence, Mr. Lally, so you don't need the fair and accurate depiction.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. George, you know what? I'm going to send you home. Okay. So I need to see counsel outside back in just a minute to figure out the next 2 days. You are muted.
Okay, let's go to day 27. That's that one. Okay. Space day 28.
Okay, so those are my rulings. Are they clear, Mr. Jackson? Are they clear, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so are they ready to come in? Thank you. We'll just go right into it. Thank you.
All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Canoe, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, before the County of Draw near, give your attendance, you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. School is now open. You may be seated.
All right, good morning again, council, and Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. So we appreciate that you were patient, that we got a lot of work done this morning before you came out. It's cool in here now, as long as you're away from the sun from the windows, it should be fine. The county has done a really terrific job of making sure that they got this building nice and cool for us today, so I appreciate what the county's done as well. I do have to ask you those 3 questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing the case with anyone?
I bet
Since we
they're
left?
not looking forward
Everyone
to
said
this.
yes.
Another hot
Were you also able to
trial.
follow my instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left here on Tuesday? Everyone said no or shook their heads. All right, thank you very much. So may we call the witness, please? Trooper Garino, please.
Same situation.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning.
You gonna say kill me again, sir?
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Hey,
Thinking
Trey.
back to the other day,
Thank you.
I've been showing you, so you had testified about some extraction reports that you had conducted from the various forensic extractions that you had done pertaining to both the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you want to approach?
Yes.
We're showing you the document, asking you to review that with open finish.
Okay.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, it's
What do you recognize that to be?
Karen Reed's phone call logs.
And that's specifically from January 28th and January 29th, is that correct?
Yes, it starts the 28th at 12:33 to, I'm sorry, 29th at 12:33 to 3:19 p.m. on the 29th.
And just for ease of reference, does it sort of go in descending order as far as the earlier calls are on the last page and then the more recent calls are on the first page?
Here
Yes, that's
are
correct.
the damning
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
the phone calls. Here we go. Oh. Okay, come on, jerk face.
Coach January,
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce the witness next.
Okay.
No good.
It's 6:34.
Mayor Pro January,
Yes.
showing you another document, sir, you recognize that.
Yes,
What do you recognize that to be?
this is the chats from John O'Keefe and Chris Albert.
And again, that's an extraction report that you created from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Mayor Pro January,
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce the witness next. No objection.
Mr. Lally, you really do need to keep this. It's 6:35.
And Mayor Pro, oh, I'm sorry.
Come on, Molly.
My apologies. Mayor Pro January,
Yes.
showing you another document, sir, ask you to look at that. When we finish.
Yes.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is Karen Reed's the full chat report of everyone from the 29th on.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce the witness next. With no objection.
6:36.
I'm sorry, may I have the last one? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. We're trying to keep what's now been marked as Exhibit 636. Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish a portion of this to the jury?
Yes.
And sir, I'm going to direct your attention to the exhibit before you that's now been marked as Exhibit 636. And Ms. Gilman, if I could, I'm sorry, Garino and Ms. Gilman, if I could direct your attention to page 3. And you have that before you, sir?
Yes, I do.
And on page 3, who was that conversation with?
Laura Sullivan.
And that conversation essentially continues from page 3 to page 6. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
And so I'm going to ask you, similar to what I asked you the other day, if you could read from that conversation in its entirety, indicating who's speaking, content of what's being said, and the date and time associated with that message.
Yes. All right. First message from Laura Sullivan at 12:45 p.m. on January 29th, 2022. Karen, it's Laura. Please call me. Karen says, hi, Laura, at 1:07 p.m. Karen then says, John passed away, 1:07 p.m. Laura, Karen, I'm shaking. I'm so sorry. At 1:07. Karen says, we found him outside in the snow at 5 a.m., 1:07 p.m. Laura, I can't stop crying, 1:07 p.m. again. Karen, thank you, 1:07. And Laura finally says, why was he out there, 1:07 p.m. Oh, sorry. Karen replies, he left the party we were at. I don't know what time. I didn't even go in. I went to bed. That's at 1:08 p.m. Laura says, oh my God, 1:08. Karen, my heart breaks for, my heart breaks for everyone at 1:09 p.m. So.
Thanks. So in those text messages, Ms. Sullivan, in the afternoon of the 29th, she indicates to Ms. Sullivan that they located Mr. O'Keefe around 5 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 28 and 29
Oh,
of those
that's so
messages
damning
exhibit 40.
because you said 5 a.m. instead of 6.
Page 28 and 29.
It was like
who's that
5
conversation with?
something.
This is Karen Read and John O'Keefe.
These are conversations from the early. These conversations on page 28 through 29 of this exhibit occur in the early morning hours of January 29th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you could, sir, again, please read as far as who's speaking, what they're saying, and what date and time these are being sent.
Yes. So Karen Read to John O'Keefe at 12:55 a.m. on the 29th. I'm going home. Followed by, see you later. At 1:02 a.m., she texts John again saying, your kids are cucking alone. And at 1:04 a.m., she says, I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone.
Trying to get him back home because she
Thank you. May I
got
approach this retreat?
Yes.
he dogged her. That is so incriminating. Oh, so bad, Karen. That is just so bad. Oh, shame on you.
May I have a moment, Sharon?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
So I'm showing you two documents. And Mr. Officer, we can put the light. You recognize each of those documents, sir?
Yes, one is Karen Read call log report. Just want to confirm which one this is. Yeah. For John O'Keefe, and then John O'Keefe's full call log report on the 29th.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to the defendant, Ms. Reed's call log reports, and specifically, if I could draw your attention to what's been, they're enumerated as far as certain box numbers, correct? 1 through whatever it goes on the last page.
Yes.
If I could direct your attention to boxes 113 and 114.
Okay.
See those entries, sir?
Yes.
Now, as far as the time related to box 113 and 114, what are the timestamps associated with that?
1/29/2022 at 12:36 a.m. 41 seconds, and then another one at 12:36 and 10 seconds a.m. on the 29th.
And is there any indication within that report as far as whether or not those calls are answered, those calls are missed, those calls are rejected? What's listed?
It says answered.
And we'll get to this a little bit more in a moment, but with regard to that 12:36 time, from your review of both the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is there a voicemail that the defendant left Mr. O'Keefe at that time frame?
There was a voicemail at 12:37 a.m. These ones here, it looks like they're 3 seconds and 5 seconds long.
And they're listed as answered, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention over to Mr. O'Keefe's call report. And specifically, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to what's been labeled as box number 134 and then 134 with a 1 in parentheses following that.
Okay.
And do you see those entries, sir?
Yes.
And what is the date and time associated with those entries in Mr. O'Keefe's records?
His records shows number 134 is 12:36, 9 seconds on the 29th, and then 134 with the 1 in the parentheses, 12:36 and 9 seconds as well. But call duration 0 seconds.
And as far as any indication on those calls, as far as whether they're answered, they're missed, they're rejected, or what are they listed as?
There's nothing. Also 133 is the same call. That one says missed, and it's at the same timestamp of 12:36 and 9 seconds.
So the same call around the same time frame shows up in Mr. O'Keefe's report as missed and shows up in the defendant's report as answered, correct?
That is correct.
And that's around the time that the defendant is calling the victim repeatedly and leaving voicemails on Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach this to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes.
It's still not deleted. Fuck. Imagine that. Now they're going to play them. Such damning evidence. This is the catch-22. What the F do you do?
Now, Trooper Guarino, you conducted an analysis of both the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
That's correct.
And from your analysis of that phone, were you able to determine occurred from the defendant's phone to Mr. O'Keefe's phone from the time period shortly after 12:30 a.m. To the time period shortly after 6 a.m.?
There was over 50. I think it's 53 or 55. But
And any of those calls from your review of those records indicate any sort of conversation as far as duration, as far as being labeled as answered, anything to that effect?
that Mr. O'Keefe actually picked up the phone and spoke to Miss Reed?
She was
No.
She was calling like a mofo.
Now, with regards to those phone calls from the defendant to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, did you find from Mr. O'Keefe's phone in relation to voicemails left by the defendant?
There were should be 8 voicemails on Mr. O'Keefe's phone from the 29th till the phone was discovered. All from Miss Reed, no one else.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So no. Oh. Because she called and was pissed off, thinking he was with somebody
What
else.
do you recognize that to be?
It's the John O'Keefe voicemails from Karen Read on his phone.
She was
From that period that we were just speaking about on January 29th?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to introduce in a minute the next exhibit. We have no objection.
She thought she was going to spend the weekend with him. Shame on her. Shame.
Now, sir, from your review of the defendant's phone, before we get to those, from your review of the defendant's phone, what, if anything, were you able to observe or ascertain that the defendant's phone did at approximately 12:36 a.m.?
So
It
by
connected
looking at
to his
the
Wi-Fi.
timeline in the phone, we were able to see that Miss Reed's phone auto-connected to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi at his house at 12:36 a.m. We know this because it's a password-protected access to the phone, so you would have to know the password to get into this Wi-Fi network.
Did not happen, sir.
And that would be the home in One Meadows Avenue, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if we could publish each of the 8 voicemails to the jury.
Okay. Are we going to hear which time each one is?
Yes, Your Honor.
Dang you, Karen, for calling him off the hook like that. Dang you,
And Trooper Guarino, again,
Karen.
similar to the other messages,
Karen,
just for point of
don't
reference,
be a
the
Karen.
earliest of the voicemails is the last in the list, and the most recent is at the top of the list. Is that correct?
Yes,
Because you're Karen.
Now, as far
for
as his
somebody.
first voicemail, what time did this occur?
12:37 a.m.
And with the court's permission, if I could play that for the jury.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could have the second message.
I'd be mad too if somebody dogged me. I don't know if I'd say I hate you, but hey.
Sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could pause right there, please. My apologies, I just wanted the siren to go by.
Oh, that's fine.
And before Ms. Gilman presses play again, Trooper Guarino, what time is the second message?
12:42.
Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Oh, 42. You can hear her walking in his house.
Now, Trooper Guarino, with reference to the third message, what time is that received?
12:59.
And again, when I say received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
That's the timestamp of the voicemail in his phone. Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, with reference to that third message.
John, I'm down to a fucking kid. And nobody knows what the fuck you want. Fucking pervert.
Now, the fourth message, Trooper Guarino, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:02 a.m.
Ms. Gilman, if you could, when you're ready.
Damn you, Karen. When did you fall asleep, Karen?
That was it.
So can we just turn the air conditioner off for just a second, please?
So she didn't leave no message yet?
Your Honor, there was no content. It was just like a 1 second long message.
No content.
And Trooper Guarino, with regard to the fifth message, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:11 a.m. Excuse me.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could.
111.
Yeah, 1 in the morning, I'm with your fucking niece and nephew. You fucking pervert. You're a fucking pervert.
And the sixth message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:18 a.m.
Gilman, if you could.
John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are fucking using me right now. You're fucking another girl. You sleeping next to me. You're a fucking loser. Fuck yourself.
The seventh message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
5:23 a.m.
5:23 a.m.
The last and eighth message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
6:08 a.m.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. If you could pause there for 1 second, I'm sorry. With respect to this message received on Mr. O'Keefe's phone at 6:08 a.m. From your knowledge of the investigation, where was the defendant, who, if anyone, was with or around her at the time of this message at 6:08 a.m.?
Jen McCabe, Kerry Roberts. During the message, you can hear someone on the phone with 911.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Just so bad, so incriminating. Just freaking out.
Thank you, Mr. Gilman.
Can we turn the air conditioning back on? Thank you very much.
Now, Trooper Garino, in addition to the 53 phone calls that you testified about, the defendant made to Mr. O'Keefe from that time frame following 12:30 a.m. to approximately just past 6 a.m., did you note any other calls to a contact listed within the defendant's phone as mom?
Yes.
And when were those calls placed?
I believe there's one at 1:10-ish in the morning. I forget the exact timestamp. There's also one at around 4:40.
Sir, are you going to argue with me that it's preferable not to wait to record that data in a report?
Objection.
Ask it differently, Mr. Yannetti.
You were also taught that it's important to include all the important details in your police report, correct?
Again, it depends on the report I'm writing.
Okay, so in other words, there are times when you're writing a police report when you intentionally leave out important details, Trooper. Is that your testimony before this jury?
Objection.
I'll allow that question. Is that what you do, Trooper?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Your Honor.
So you would agree with me, going back to my question, that it is important to include all the important details in your report, is it not?
Again, it depends on the report that I'm writing. There's some data that goes in, there's some that doesn't. I can't have everything in.
Okay.
So I went to SUNY at Stony Brook in New York. I was a double major in biology and Germanic languages and literature. I graduated with a bachelor's of science degree. After that, I went to the American University of Antigua for medical school, and I graduated with honors, magna cum laude. After that, I did a 4-year combined anatomic and clinical pathology residency program at NYU Winthrop Hospital in Long Island, New York. After that, I did a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship at the Boston office of the Chief Medical Examiner. And after that, I did a 2-year neuropathology fellowship program through Brown University at Rhode Island Hospital.
And doctor, are you board certified?
Yes, I am board certified in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, forensic pathology, and neuropathology.
And if you could just explain to the jury a little bit about what does board certified mean?
Board certification means that every medical specialty has their own board. So for example, the American Board of Pathology dictates whether or not you can be board certified based on certain criteria. So you have to meet certain criteria, meaning that you have to complete a certain number of surgical specimens, a certain number of autopsies. And then once you meet that criteria, you can take an exam, which if you pass, leads to your board certification.
If I could ask you just a couple, and your board certification is up to date at this point, is that correct?
Yes.
in each of those areas that you just spoke of?
Yes.
Now, if I could ask you some general terms as far as if you could define them for the jury. First of all, what is pathology in a general sense?
Pathology is essentially the study of any sort of disease or abnormal state of the body tissues. So anything that can go wrong in the body and any of the body systems is essentially the study of pathology.
And now starting with anatomic pathology, what is anatomic pathology more specifically?
Anatomic pathology consists of the study of surgical specimens. So for example, if someone goes to the hospital to have a tumor removed, that specimen will go to pathology. The pathologist will look at it, cut it, look at specimens under the microscope, order any ancillary tests if necessary, and then make a diagnosis, which is then conveyed to the clinician. Anatomic pathology also consists of cytopathology, which is looking at individual cells, and then it also consists of autopsy pathology.
And as far as clinical pathology, what does that mean?
Clinical pathology is anything that is lab-related in pathology. So if you have to get blood drawn and then the results come back, that is clinical pathology. If there's any sort of blood work that needs to be done, for example, if you're going to have a surgery and they have to cross-match and type you in case you have a blood transfusion, that's considered clinical pathology. Also microbiology, so anything infectious. So essentially anything that goes through a lab is clinical pathology.
And what is forensic pathology?
Forensic pathology is the study of autopsies in a medical legal sense. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be something that is legal. Sometimes it may be just a person who has not seen a doctor in many years, dies at home. There's no physician that is willing to sign a death certificate. So we work on those types of cases, plus anything that is non-natural.
Now, neuropathology, what is that?
Neuropathology is the study of the brain, spinal cord, eyes, muscles, and nerves.
And if you could, just again, in general terms, as far as casework is concerned, related to your work as a director of neuropathology, can you explain to the jury sort of what it is that you do with respect to neuropathology?
Yes. So my job primarily entails me to be a consultant for the medical examiners. So the medical examiners have a certain set of criteria that they follow in order to determine whether or not a brain needs to be saved for a neuropathologic analysis. So upon following that criteria, if the brain is saved, it gets put into formalin, which essentially fixes the brain so it firms it up, so it makes it easier to analyze. So after the brain has been fixed, I usually let them fix about 2 weeks. Sometimes it could be a little more, a little less, depending on circumstances. I will then look at the brain, take photographs of it from all sides, and then cut the brain, take photographs, document any sort of abnormalities. And then if I feel the need to take sections to look at under the microscope, then I will take those sections. They will be processed through histology. I will look at the slides. Sometimes you may have to add in additional testing, for example, immunohistochemistry, to see if there's anything in particular that you cannot maybe diagnose solely on looking at the histology. And then once that is done, I will issue a report to the medical examiner, and then they use it in terms of determining their cause and manner of death, if necessary.
Now, as far as that formalin process, as far as the solution is concerned, is there a typical time period that the brain would have to be in that solution prior to you examining it or cutting it or any of those other things?
Usually about 2 weeks, give or take maybe a few days here and there, but I usually try to let them fix at least 10 days minimum.
And again, in general terms, with respect to the types of cases that are referred to you, what types of cases are typically referred to you?
So part of the criteria that we use is that any cases for children or babies under the age of 2 years, those always come to me. Also, if there's any cases that have blunt head trauma that may be suspicious or homicidal in nature, those will typically come to me as well. Some of the other cases may be just a difficult neuropathologic entity that a non-neuropath trained medical examiner may not be able to really diagnose. And then sometimes there's cases that are just surprise cases where the medical examiner opens up the head and they see something interesting or abnormal, and they decide to save that case for me to look at further.
Now, with respect to the cases that you do see, at some point did you become involved in analysis or testing of a brain belonging to John O'Keefe?
Yes.
And who was the doctor that was the medical examiner that made that referral in this case?
It was Dr. Irini Scordi-Bello.
And with respect to your analysis here, obviously you looked at the brain. What any other sources of information did you review or did you look at in ultimately formulating your opinion in this case?
So at the time when I was able to cut the brain of Mr. O'Keefe, I had information that was relayed to us from our intake department. So when a case gets called into the medical examiner, it gets taken by the intake department and they're given kind of just a rough summary of the case. I also had the police report, I had the EMS report, I had the medical records from when Mr. O'Keefe was in the hospital. I also had medical records from the primary care physician. I had autopsy photos, and I also had, I believe just refer to my notes here because I had a lot of notes. I also had the inventory and tracking sheets, which are notes created by the medical examiner, and the neuropath request itself.
Now, are you familiar with some terms in relation to injuries that you would observe as far as from a neuropathological perspective, as far as injuries being acute, subacute, or remote?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what those are and what those mean?
So it depends on circumstances. Acute generally is something that happened within a very short time frame. So when I refer to something as being acute, I usually refer to that as something that's occurring from the time of an injury to maybe a day or so afterwards. As I said, it's variable, dependent on circumstances. Subacute is something that has not happened within the last few minutes, few hours, maybe even a day, and maybe something that is now in the process of healing. And then chronic is usually something that has happened a while ago in the past. You may see some sort of evidence of some type of injury in a chronic state. You may also not see any evidence because it may have completely healed by that point.
And so from your analysis in this case, how did you characterize, in your opinion, from everything that you reviewed as far as the injuries you observed in Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
The injuries I observed were acute injuries, meaning that they probably occurred minutes to hours.
Now, if I could turn your attention to your findings as far as when you conducted your analysis and your testing in this particular case, what, if anything, did you find as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
So when I look at the brain, what I do is I look at all surfaces from all sides. And one of the things that I look for is anything grossly obvious, meaning anything I can look at the brain and see that there's something there that shouldn't be there. So one of the first things I noticed was a subarachnoid hemorrhage. And subarachnoid hemorrhage is something that occurs when you have bleeding within the leptomeninges. The leptomeninges are a very thin membrane that encase the brain and the spinal cord, and there should not be blood freely floating within the leptomeninges. So if you have a subarachnoid hemorrhage, most of the time, the causes are either a ruptured aneurysm, which is something I would see upon cutting the brain, or some type of trauma. So that was the first finding.
Can I stop you there just for a second? Of those taking notes and for our court reporter, could you spell the type of hemorrhage and the membrane?
Yes. Subarachnoid is SUBARACHNOID. And leptomeninges, LEPTOMENINGES.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, with regard to anything related to the aneurysm that you indicated that you would have seen, what, if anything, did you see during the course of your review or testing or analysis of Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
So aneurysms are typically seen in the cerebral vessels that sit around the base of the brain. So there's something called the circle of Willis, which is the main arterial supply. It sits around the base of the brain, and it's kind of shaped like a circle that has vessels that come off that extend to other areas of the brain. So typically, if there is an aneurysm that is ruptured, it's going to be located somewhere in one of those vessels. So upon observing those vessels, I did not see any evidence of any aneurysm or any sort of natural disease state that might have led to a rupture in one of these vessels. Also, sometimes these vessels, since they do go deep into the brain, you may only see the rupture upon cutting the brain. And I did not see any evidence of any rupture of any of these vessels anywhere in the brain.
Now, as far as the subarachnoid hemorrhage that you observed, where was that located within the brain, if you could?
So the subarachnoid hemorrhage was on the frontal poles, which is essentially right here in the front of the brain. So the frontal lobes obviously sit in the front, and then the poles are the very frontmost portion of the brain. So it was on the frontal poles. It was also on the left temporal pole. So the temporal region is right here in the temporal region. And because of the way that the temporal lobe is shaped, it kind of has a little loop right in the front. So it has a pole as well. So it was on the left temporal pole. And then it was also in the left lateral fissure. So you have a frontal pole here. You have the temporal lobe right here. And then the lateral fissure goes kind of in between the temporal and the frontal lobes. So you have the hemorrhage here, and then hemorrhage right there. So it's kind of all concentrated almost in one area. But then there was also hemorrhage of the posterior surface of the right temporal as well, so on this side.
Now, doctor, I'm probably going to butcher this horribly, but just as far as the bilateral unci, are you familiar with that?
Yes, so the unci are the medial portion of the temporal lobes. So the brain is essentially oriented in a way that each hemisphere, the right and left hemisphere, are the same. The unci are the most inner portion of the temporal lobes. So the unci sit just next to the brainstem. So if you have anything that causes herniation of these unci, they start to push inwards onto the brainstem. So say this is a brainstem, here the unci, they start to push in. And because the brain is within the skull is hard, you have no room for any sort of expansion of the brain. If there is herniation, it will start to push in that area because the brainstem turns into the spinal cord and goes out of the skull through the foramen magnum. So you have this hole about this big or so at the base of the skull where the brainstem turns to the spinal cord, then comes out. So that's one of the only areas in which the brain can actually move because it's encased in the hard skull. So if you have herniation, it'll start to push and then push downwards.
Could I ask you to spell unci?
UNCI.
And with reference to this bilateral unci area, what, if any, herniation did you observe?
So when the unci herniate, it can be subtle. Sometimes if it's herniated enough, you may see hemorrhages in the brainstem. And this happens because this tissue is now pushing on the brainstem and it's essentially being compressed. So there was herniation noted, and then there was hemorrhage within the brainstem.
Now, if I could ask you, doctor, just to be familiar with the term or medical term known as a contusion?
Yes.
And can you explain just in general terms to the jury what you understand that term to mean?
So a contusion is essentially a bruise. It's blood that's coming out from a blood vessel. It's the blood vessel that has been broken in some way, and now there's blood coming out.
Now, you're also familiar with another term part of that term known as a punctate contusion?
Yeah, so punctate is essentially just a way to describe the size of a contusion. When I say punctate, I need something that's very, very tiny, almost just like a dot.
And with respect to punctate contusion, what, if anything, did you observe in Mr. O'Keefe's brain, and where was it located?
So there were punctate contusions in the frontal and temporal cortices. So frontal, once again, is the front portion right here. Temporal is kind of right behind it in this area. And the cortex is the gray matter of the brain. So it's a thin strip that kind of just goes around the brain, and then the white matter is underneath all that. So in traumatic injuries, you can see punctate contusions or even larger contusions in the cortex. It usually indicates that the brain has been pushed against something, which is now causing these little blood vessels to rupture, hence seeing the contusions because the blood is no longer contained in the blood vessels.
Now, doctor, with regard to the subarachnoid hemorrhage, is there anything that you're able to do as far as measuring that?
It's hard to measure because it's usually pretty vague. It's not usually something that is a well circumscribed, meaning I could say it starts here and ends here. A lot of times a subarachnoid hemorrhage, because it's sitting in this space that it's not supposed to be in, it can spread. So it may be thicker in one area, thinner in another. So you may have some that may appear just as a very faint hemorrhage, and then some that might be very thick, which you can physically measure. So I usually just give an area where it is and say it's here, it's there, because it's almost like measuring something that has blurred edges. You can't really get a completely accurate measurement.
And what, if anything, were you able to observe or measure with regard to the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the area of the left prefrontal lobe?
So it appeared thicker in that area, meaning that as opposed to it looking just like a faint red color that should not be that color, it was actually thick enough that it was obscuring the underlying brain parenchyma.
If I could turn your attention, doctor, just back for a moment to the punctate contusions that you were testifying about before. As far as your observations of those, was that one or more than one, or how many did you observe?
So there were multiple. There were multiple contusions to the point where it's not something that you can count. I mean, you could count it, but it would probably take a very long time. If it had been something like 1 or 2, 3, 4, maybe a handful, it would probably be something I would say there are 3 here, 4 there, but there were so many that it didn't serve a purpose to count.
And the number of those, what, if any, significance did that have in regard to your analysis, your observations?
So would that occur in a fight, maybe? You know?
So given that there's multiple, it means that there's enough pressure in the brain that there were many surfaces that were pressing on the bony prominences of the skull, which was leading to a lot of blood vessels rupturing, causing these contusions.
Now, I think you've talked a little bit, but just in general terms, if you could describe for the jury, what is a hemorrhage?
So a hemorrhage is essentially blood that's coming out from a vessel. So it's like a bruise. Hemorrhage, bruise, contusion, they're fairly similar. Some people use them interchangeably, but it's essentially blood that's no longer contained in a blood vessel.
When something is termed medically, based on your training experience, as a diffuse hemorrhage, what does that mean?
So diffuse means it's over a very large area. It's not something that's just a tiny little area. You could say, okay, I'm looking at this person's, let's say, liver, and there's a 2 by 2 centimeter hemorrhage sitting right there in the right lobe of the liver. Diffuse would mean there's hemorrhage throughout nearly the entirety of the liver.
Now, with regard to, you made a note as far as there being a diffuse hemorrhage within the pons, P-O-N-S, is that correct?
Yes.
To explain to the jury sort of what that means and where is that located within the brain?
So the pons is part of the brainstem. So the brainstem starts right in the middle of the brain, and you have the midbrain, the pons, the medulla, and then it turns into the spinal cord. So the pons is kind of in the middle of the brainstem. And when you have hemorrhage in the pons, in this circumstance, it was because there was the herniation of those inside, which began moving closer and closer towards the pons, pressing on it, causing hemorrhage, because now the tissue is compressed. The blood is not going to be able to flow in and out freely, therefore hemorrhage.
Now, with regard to the totality of what you reviewed in this case in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, you gave form any opinions to a reasonable degree of medical certainty in regard to the injuries that you observed to Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
I was able to determine that these are acute traumatic injuries. I know that based on what I observed and in combination with the autopsy findings, that this is due to some type of trauma.
No,
if I could ask,
can't
as far
say a
as,
car accident.
You have certain findings as far as an intraventricular hemorrhage and occipital horns of the lateral ventricles, correct?
Yes.
If you could please explain to the jury what exactly does that mean?
Yes. So the ventricles are almost like a tunnel system of the brain in which the cerebral spinal fluid flows through. So the cerebral spinal fluid serves as a fluid that nourishes the brain. It provides a flow of nutrients, oxygen, things like that. And it starts in the frontal portion of the brain, and then it goes backwards towards the occipital, which is the back. And it also flows downward through the brainstem and then into the spinal cord as well. So the occipital horns of the lateral ventricles are in the back of the head, and having hemorrhage in those areas, in any area of the ventricular system, is usually indicative of some type of trauma. So there should not be blood freely flowing within the ventricular system.
Now, Dr. Stonebridge, with regard to your findings, you mentioned that your findings were that the injuries were acute and that the injuries were the result of trauma, correct?
Yes.
What, if anything, can you say or can you opine as to the mechanism for those acute traumatic injuries?
It was something that required some type of force, given that there were skull fractures. I can't say what type of force or how much force, but it was definitely something that caused some type of force, which led to the skull fractures and then the subsequent brain findings.
Like a fight.
And the brain findings in particular that you made, were those consistent with the fall?
They can be, yes.
Can they also be consistent with being struck by a vehicle and then going to the ground?
Yes, they can be.
Thank you, Doctor. I have no further questions.
You're welcome.
Cross-examination?
For questions, thank you.
You're welcome.
Doctor, thank you very much. You are all set.
Thank you.
Okay.
You might have to step down. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lally, your next
Go
witness.
to-
Yes, Your Honor, call Dr. Irene Scorti Bello to the stand.
Okay.
And Your Honor, as she's coming in, may we approach briefly?
Sure.
Umbrellas. The first one is natural. When we determine the manner of death to be natural, it means that the death was caused exclusively by natural disease. That would be heart disease, liver disease, cancer, aging, Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. The second manner of death is accident. That means that the cause of death was due to an injury or due to an intoxication, either a physical injury or a chemical injury. But the circumstances show little or no evidence that intoxication or that injury was intentional. So most motor vehicle accidents, most drug overdose.
With reference to the head area, directing their attention to what, if anything, you observed in the area of the head of Ms. Rose.
In terms of injuries, would you like me to point out the injuries? So as I mentioned, there were ecchymosis, that's another word for collection of blood under the upper eyelids. On Mr. O'Keefe, the ecchymosis on the right eyelid was also associated with a very small laceration. Then there was an abrasion on the left side of the nose. And then on the back of the head, there was a 3-centimeter laceration. So this is the right side. It would be towards, the back lower side on the right side of the head.
And that laceration on the back lower side, or right side of the head, is that in the same area that you observed what you described as sort of the originating skull fracture?
Yes, when the scalp was reflected, there was bleeding under the scalp in that particular area. And then when the skull was opened, that's the area that appeared fractured and appeared to have other fractures originating or radiating from it.
From her.
My students said that. And Dr. Scorti-Bello, if you could again use the laser pointer, just direct jury's attention to what, if any, injuries you noted in this sort of middle torso or upper extremity portion of Ms. Rose.
Okay, there was nothing.
So on the right upper extremity, and again, this is the back of the body. We have this collection of.
Day 29.
Jim?
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Read.
All right. Good morning, counsel. Good morning, Ms. Reed.
Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same 3 questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, read anything about this case since we left here yesterday? Everyone said no. Thank you very much.
Can we have Dr. Scorti-Bello, please?
You solemnly swear to demonstrate the court and jury in the case down here to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Dr. Sporty Bill, if I could ask you some questions, just turning back a little bit from what you were testifying to about yesterday. You had mentioned in your testimony yesterday that you had received some, in addition to the internal and external examination that you conducted with Mr. O'Keefe, you had received some other material that you had reviewed, correct?
Correct.
Now, included within that material was some material from the state police as far as the investigative agency investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Correct.
Now, is that is that typical? Is that abnormal? If you could describe sort of in general terms, as far as what, if any, communication would you typically have with the investigating body or agency in relation to any sort of autopsy or examination you do?
Yes. In Massachusetts, under Massachusetts law, the medical examiner's office is responsible, and our role is to determine the cause and manner of death by doing an autopsy. The scene or the scene of death or the place where the decedent is found is controlled by the district attorney's office, and state police will do an investigation. When we accept a case into our office, we request police reports, to explain and describe the circumstances of the death. It could be a house, it could be somewhere else, it could be outside. Every case comes with a police report, and we review that police report, and if we feel that we need more information, then we contact the investigating body and ask for more information, again, depending on the case.
And specifically in this case, in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, did you reach out to get some more information?
I did reach out, yes.
Was that in part in relation to what you were talking about in your testimony yesterday, as far as the diagnosis of hypothermia and trying to sort of better understand the circumstances?
Sustained.
Why did you reach out?
I reached out because when the case was presented to us, and after I did the autopsy, I did not have all the information that I needed in order to certify the manner. The cause of death to me was I was able to determine the cause of death from the autopsy. When an event is unwitnessed, we usually reach out to the investigating agency and ask them whether they have any more information than they did on the day that the autopsy was done, because investigations sometimes take some time. So in the days and the weeks following the autopsy, I reached out and asked if there was any more information than what I was originally presented with. Was there any video from the surrounding areas? Did anybody come forward to say that they actually witnessed whatever happened? Again, by the time I was ready to finalize the case, and we have approximately 3 months or 90 days from the day of the autopsy until we issue a report, I was not provided with enough information for me to be able to determine the manner.
Now, Doctor, do you recall specifically who it was that you spoke with from the state police?
Yes, I documented that I spoke with Trooper Proctor, I believe, twice.
And with reference, not asking you anything as far as what that conversation consisted of, but as far as the tone of that conversation, did you feel pressured or coerced to come up with a certain determination?
No, I do not.
And even if you had been, what would your response have been in reference to that?
My response was that I am responsible for what goes on the death certificate, and unless I have enough information, clear and convincing evidence, I cannot determine a manner.
May I approach?
Yes.
See. He said, if you were coerced, she said, I said, not, I would have said, she said, I said. That kind of gave it away without giving it away, if you're paying attention, but I'm nobody.
Doctor, I'm showing you 5 photographs that I gave you yesterday. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
I recognize these as photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's body. I believe these were taken at the hospital. One of them is a photograph taken at the time of autopsy.
May I approach you, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce you to the next exhibits.
Ms. Little?
No objection.
Thank you.
This is pretty fucked up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a moment? I just want to make sure there are no.
Yes.
Yeah, cameraman, don't zoom over there. We can see the pictures.
May I approach again?
Yes.
This poor head's all fucked.
Your Honor, with information, may I publish these for the jury?
So jurors, remember the instruction I gave you yesterday on these photographs, okay?
Ms. Gilman, if I can have a photograph 2853. And Doctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, this is a picture taken of Mr. O'Keefe's body.
And Doctor, if you could, using the laser pointer, that you have there, direct your attention to what, if anything, you observe of significance in this photograph related to the injuries that you were testifying about this.
Yes, so first thing you notice is the medical intervention, which I talked about yesterday. There's defibrillator adhesive pads on the chest. There is what's known as a C collar, a cervical stabilization collar for the neck, and he has been intubated prior to going to the hospital. The injuries that are obvious in this picture include the abrasions on his right forearm and arm. And you can see here, there is discoloration of the upper eyelid of the right eye with some blood that's dripping. That's the orbital or supraorbital ecchymosis that I described before with, we're too far to see the very, very small laceration that is present there, but that's what's causing the bleeding.
And it's going to be like that photograph 2857. Now, Doctor, this is not before you at the current time. It's probably marked as 442. Do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, this is a picture of the abrasions that I described in my report. Posterior upper arm and forearm. You can see that they have some sort of pattern to it. Anytime we see a pattern, we try to document it as best as we possibly can.
Now, Doctor, with reference to these injuries as far as the abrasions to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, what kind of role will that play as far as your determination, as far as cause of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
These are superficial abrasions to the skin. They are not lethal. They're not contributory to the cause of death. The trauma that I observed on the head along with the hypothermia are the two factors contributing to his death. These are present, they're noted, they're described, they're photographed, but I do not know how they came to be, and I did not contribute them to the cause of death.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 286. Doctor, returning to the exhibits of the photos that you have before you, you recognize this up on the screen here.
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand. This is the dorsum or the dorsal aspect of the hand as opposed to the palm. And you can see that there are some contusions or bruises. There's a larger one here and two very small ones here. This particular contusion has two pinpoint small defects associated with it. I believe this could be due to attempts at gaining IV access during the many attempts of resuscitation, but I cannot be absolutely
It also
sure.
looks like he could have been in a fight.
If I could have a photograph 2865. And Dr. Swartwell, if you could, again, using the way to point direct jury's attention to what anything of significance you noticed in this photograph.
Again, this is a slightly closer view of Mr. O'Keefe's face. You can see the discoloration, the ecchymosis on the right eye with a slight amount of bleeding. You can see here that there's also some discoloration of his left eyelid.
And Doctor, with reference to the other injuries that you were testifying about yesterday, as far as the small cuts or abrasions or lacerations, are those visible in this photograph as well?
I can't hear your question. If you could just repeat it and a little louder.
Sure. My apologies, Doctor. With reference to this photograph, as far as your testimony yesterday in regard to the other smaller injuries around the nose and eyes area of Mr. O'Keefe, are those visible in this photograph as well?
You can see some discoloration of the nose, but this is not a very good picture of it. I think there's a linear abrasion on the left side of the nose that I described, and it's probably this.
Ms. Gilman, can I have photograph 2877? And Doctor, if you could, again, using the laser point direct jury's attention to what anything significant you observed in this photograph.
Yes. This is the view of the left side of Mr. O'Keefe's face. You can see the discoloration of the left eyelid, and now you can see this linear abrasion on his nose and a small abrasion more towards the middle of his nose.
Ms. Gilman, lastly, from this set, if I could have photograph 9488. Saying, Dr. Swartwell, if you could, using the laser point direct jury's attention to what, if anything, significant you observed.
This is the laceration to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head. You can see this defect here. It's ragged. It's a typical classic blunt impact injury, and you can see the abrasion, the scrape that is adjacent to it.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm just going to need to And we get out the lights. Thanks. Now, Doctor, with reference to what you were testifying yesterday as far as the subscapular bleeding, bleeding on the scalp, was that more or less prominent on one side versus the other side of Mr. O'Keefe's scalp?
Yes, it was more prominent under that laceration that we just looked at.
So would that be more prominent on the right side? Is that correct?
Yes.
You testified yesterday about a blunt object injury in relation to the injury to the back of the head, then leading to the fractures and the bleeding in the brain, correct?
Correct.
And then further leading to the ecchymosis, is that correct?
In the eyes, yes.
Now, that blunt object, what, if anything, can you say about what that blunt object would be?
It could be any blunt object.
Now, from your training experience with reference to the number of autopsies and examinations that you've conducted over the years, would that blunt object possibility include the ground, especially if it was frozen ground?
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Ask the question differently.
Stop with the frozen ground.
The injuries that you observed to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, skull fracture, would that be consistent with a fall to the ground?
It could be.
Would that be consistent with being projected by an object, say, in a pedestrian collision, and then striking your head on the ground?
It's possible.
The arm injuries that you observed, would those be consistent with scratches from either glass or a piece of plastic or a piece of metal?
It's possible.
And the injuries that you observed, would that be consistent with injuries that you observed in other cases of a pedestrian collision?
They're not the classic pedestrian injuries that we observe.
Boom! Not
And to that point,
classic.
as far as when you say classic, as far as a pedestrian collision is concerned, you've conducted autopsies on a number of different pedestrian collisions.
Because they're
over the course of your
not
career, is that correct?
classic
Yes, I have.
injuries.
They all sort of mirror each
dummy.
other. Is there sort of a disparity depending on how the person interacted with the car?
Objection.
Sustained. Watch the floor, Mr. Lally.
What, if anything, are every injuries from a pedestrian collision the same?
No.
And why not?
It depends on many factors. It depends on the position of the body, of the pedestrian or the person being struck. It depends on whether they are moving or standing still. It depends on the speed of the car. It depends on whether brakes were applied or not. There's a lot of factors that come into play.
Would another factor be sort of the shape of the vehicle that strikes a pedestrian?
That's also possible. Yes, that's a factor.
And did you have occasion to see any photographs, or have you seen any photographs in relation to the defendant's vehicle in this case?
I have seen photographs, yes.
And the size or shape of that vehicle, what, if any, significance did that have to you as far as
None.
your examining?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
When we have a potential vehicle, clearly we look at the height, because one of the things that we do in most or all pedestrian or people struck by a motor vehicle is look at the legs, because in the majority, we see injuries to the legs from the bumper of the car.
Yep.
Again, depending on the kind of car, the size of the car, and the height of the bumper. So in Mr. O'Keefe, I did not see any injuries in the lower extremities. And looking at the car, I did note that it was a much bigger car with much higher, I would say much higher taillight bumper. It was not a sedan or a car that's low to the ground where the bumper would be at the level of, let's say, the knee or slightly above or slightly below.
And again, I believe yesterday in your testimony, you indicated that the skull is a pretty thick bone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sustained.
With regards to the thickness of the skull bone, what, if any, significance, or what, if any, can you say as far as the type or amount of force that would be necessary to cause the fracture that you observed?
Objection.
Overruled.
I would consider the amount of force to be significant, again, without being able to quantify it.
Have a moment, John.
Yes.
Just as you're hit in the eye, that bone could be easily break.
Doctor, from the
part of
internal
the
and external
skull bone.
examination that you conducted in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, as well as the other materials that you reviewed, were you able to come to an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to the cause of death of John O'Keefe?
Yes, the cause of death was due to blunt impact injuries of the head and hypothermia.
Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Right. Cross-examination.
Good morning, Dr. Spartibello.
Good morning.
Ms. Little, keep your voice up.
Absolutely. You testified regarding a number of injuries that you referred to as blunt impact.
Yes.
And to be clear, blunt impact injuries are a very, very large category that includes contusions, lacerations, abrasions, and fractures.
Correct.
And you testified similarly that a blunt object can also refer to a large range of objects. Is that right?
Correct.
And I think yesterday you gave the example of a microphone being a blunt object.
Correct.
It could also include something like a baseball bat,
Correct.
a dumbbell,
Could be.
the ground,
Yes.
or a German Shepherd's claws.
Claws. Possibly, yes.
You'd agree that John O'Keefe had a number of blunt impact injuries on his face, on his head, and his right arm.
Yes.
Besides his right arm, which we'll discuss in a second, taking his body from the neck down, he did not have any significant injuries.
From the neck down. Not significant, no.
Let's take those one at a time. No injury whatsoever to his shoulders.
No.
Correct.
No injuries whatsoever to his chest area, aside from sort of the CPR-related injuries that you discussed.
Yes, correct.
And that was in the sternum. Is that right?
It was in the ribs, just adjacent to the sternum. Yes.
Okay. No injuries to his torso, other than that.
No.
No injuries to his back.
Nope.
No injuries to his hips.
Correct.
No injuries to his pelvis.
Nope.
Correct.
No injuries to his thighs.
Nope.
To his.
Thighs.
No.
No injuries to his knees.
Correct.
No injuries to his shins.
Nope.
Correct.
No injuries to his ankles.
Nope.
Correct.
No injuries to his feet.
Nope.
Correct.
From the neck down, he did not have a single broken bone, again, aside from those CPR-related injuries you discussed, correct?
That's correct.
Not a single fracture.
Other than CPR, correct.
And you spoke earlier about how the bumper was a little higher than on, say, a regular sedan, correct?
Correct.
And so usually in a pedestrian collision, you would see injuries to the knees. Is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Depending on the kind of car, depending on the speed, depending on the height of the individual and the car, you might see injuries to their lower extremity. Yeah.
But in this case, you didn't see any injuries to his thighs, to his pelvis, anything even at the height of the bumper. Is that correct?
Correct. A very minor abrasion to the side of his right knee.
So surely you'd agree that John O'Keefe's injuries, or lack thereof, are inconsistent with having been struck by a 7,000-pound vehicle at 24 miles per hour and being projected 30 feet.
Objection.
Sustained. Break it down, ask it differently.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injuries, or lack thereof, are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour?
I would say it's likely and unlikely at the same time, depending on the position of the body and the vehicle in question.
Well, let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say the person were standing with their arm like this, and they were struck by the rear taillight of a vehicle at 24 miles per hour. Would you agree that his injuries are inconsistent with that scenario?
Objection.
Sustained.
Maybe approach, Your Honor.
Sure.
You are unmuted.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injuries to his arm, let's start there, are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour and then causing him to spin around and be projected 30 feet?
Okay, so you need to break it down.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injury to his arm are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour?
I don't know. I am not a reconstruction expert. I'm not a biomechanics expert. I never personally inspected the car, so I can't offer an opinion on that.
You did examine John O'Keefe's arm, correct?
Yes.
You observed no significant bruising,
Correct.
no fractures,
Correct.
and no broken bones.
Correct.
I'd like to talk about the injuries to John O'Keefe's face. You testified that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration on his right upper eyelid.
Correct.
You also described multiple abrasions on his nose.
2. Yes.
Although these injuries may not have been the ultimate cause of his death, you'd agree that less severe injuries can still be very important in interpreting the manner or the context in which that person died, correct?
Correct.
And in furtherance of that, you've been taught that when doing an autopsy, details matter,
Correct.
no matter how small.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons as a medical examiner, you have to notate every single injury you find on a person. Is that
Correct.
right? If I could show you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Show Mr. Lally.
Do you recognize that photograph?
I do.
And is that a photograph that was taken in connection with your autopsy?
Yes, it was taken at the time of autopsy after the face was cleaned.
I move to admit.
I'm sorry, after what?
The face was cleaned up.
Okay.
I move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 650.
Permission to publish?
Yes.
Are these the facial injuries that you were testifying to earlier?
Yes.
And could you kind of describe in that photograph what injuries you observed to his face?
The orbital ecchymosis on both eyes, the small laceration to the right eyelid, the abrasions on the nose.
And you testified that the injuries to his face were also the result of a blunt force trauma.
Correct.
So that's the laceration to the eye and the 2 abrasions that we see there on his nose.
Correct.
And you agree that those injuries don't just manifest out of nowhere, right?
Absolutely.
They have to originate from something.
Yes.
Would you agree that his injuries to his face are consistent with having been punched?
That is a possibility.
You can take that down, Mr. Bates. Thank you. Your internal examination notes also cite a tongue laceration on the right front of the victim's tongue. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you'd agree that a tongue laceration can be also caused by blunt force trauma.
Correct.
And that could also include something like a punch to the victim's face or jaw.
That's a possibility.
Boom.
In addition to the facial injuries, you described that Mr. O'Keefe had a significant laceration on the back of his head.
He had 1 laceration to the back of his head. Correct.
I believe we saw a photograph of that
Yes.
a little bit earlier. You testified that the skin around the laceration on the back of his head was also scratched. Do you recall
Yes, I do.
that? But you did not testify as to how you opined that might have happened.
No.
Would you agree that someone could certainly get scratched on the back of their head if they were, for instance, dragged on the ground?
It's possible.
Boom.
You described the open wound to the back of his head as a laceration, which is sort of a blunt force injury that's not the result of sharp force trauma. Is that right?
Yes.
And you'd agree that Mr. O'Keefe's head injury came from some sort of blow to the back of the head, whether it be an object or the ground. Is that right?
Yes.
Objection.
And that injury could be the result of falling backward from a standing position onto concrete.
It's possible.
It could also be the result of being struck with a large object such as a baseball bat or a barbell.
It's possible.
In other words, it was an irregular laceration that resulted from some blunt force trauma.
Correct.
I'd like to sort of circle back to those injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm. You testified that there were, again, no fractures, no broken bones, no significant contusions.
Correct.
But you did describe the wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's arm as having discrete linear abrasions, which were caused by some sort of blunt object, correct?
Yes.
What does discrete mean?
It means each one is an individual injury as opposed to confluent, where it would be all meshed together.
Your Honor, if I could publish what's been previously marked as Exhibit 19.
Okay.
And these are sort of the linear wounds that you're referring to.
Yes.
And you testified that these also sort of appear in clusters or groups. You call
Yes.
them pattern abrasions. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you'd agree that, for example, road rash does not result in this type of discrete linear wounds.
It could, but not exactly like this.
Well, typically road rash covers sort of a large area of the skin. It would be a large abrasion. I mean, you've seen numerous cases of road rash in your
Yes.
career. And it doesn't look like that.
Correct.
Blunt force trauma can include injuries from various objects, as you testified, including an animal claw, correct?
Correct.
And you agree that these discrete linear abrasions are inconsistent with having been struck by a smooth rear tail light at 24 miles per hour.
Objection.
Can you answer that, Doctor?
I can't. By
Okay.
smooth, no.
All right, next question.
By a smooth rear tail light, you said that is not what you would see at 24 miles per hour, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
As you testified earlier, you've indicated that based on the facts that were presented to you, you don't know what caused those significant scratches on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
I do not.
May I approach, Your Honor? Sure.
If I could just see what was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Led. Do you recognize that photograph?
I do. It's a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand.
May I mark that as the next in order?
Is there an objection?
May we approach?
Okay.
You are unmuted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to publish?
Well, we need to mark it first. So we'll mark it for identification, and then when it's appropriate, it will be transferred to being an exhibit.
Thank you.
But yes, you can publish. Is it all set to be published appropriately?
Yes, Your Honor.
The triple N for identification. Okay.
Dr. Scordivello, you indicated on direct examination that at least that one of the bruises from Mr. O'Keefe's right hand could potentially be attributed to an attempt to get IV fluid into the hand. Is that correct?
Correct.
During the course of your conducting your autopsy, you reviewed records from the Canton Fire Department and EMS, as well as Good Samaritan Hospital. Is that correct?
I did.
And do you recall reviewing records indicating that the IV fluids in this particular case were administered through the tibia and then later through a catheter at the hospital?
Yes, they were administered through intraosseous lines in both legs, shins, and at the hospital, they were administered through a femoral central line. Yes.
And you'd agree that bruising to the backs of hands is also consistent with defensive wounds.
Yes, that's correct.
And there are actually 4 separate distinct bruises outside of the one that you discussed earlier on Mr. O'Keefe's right hand.
Yep.
Yes, I would say 3, but I can see how you would say 4. 1, 2, 3. That might be 1 together. But yes, I can see how you would say 4.
And you testified yesterday that there was also an injury to Mr. O'Keefe's.
Vague contusion on his left hand, correct?
You were asked by Mr. Lowry.
Can we take this down now, Ms. Fiddle?
Yes, Your Honor. You testified on direct examination that you didn't see any sort of obvious signs of the fight because Mr. O'Keefe's fingernails were intact and you didn't observe any fractures on his hands. Is that right?
Correct.
But broken fingernails and fractured hands aren't the only observable signs of a fight. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, you noted a laceration over his eye.
Yes.
You noticed multiple lacerations on his nose.
Abrasions on his nose, yes. Yes.
Multiple abrasions on his nose.
Correct.
You noticed a laceration to his tongue.
Yes.
You noted the contusions on the back of his right hand.
Correct.
The injury, the contusion to his left hand as well.
Correct.
And as you just testified, bruising on the back of hands may be consistent with defensive wounds.
It could be.
So in fact, if you have a body that presents with a laceration to one of the brows, a laceration or abrasions to the nose, an egg over an eye, contusions and abrasions on the hands, and a laceration to the tongue, these injuries are consistent with a physical altercation, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are those injuries consistent with a physical altercation?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
You did your job, Doc. That's why it's undetermined, because she couldn't tell. She couldn't tell. And this will be the conclusion till we go to trial on Tuesday. Come on, finish it up.
You are unmuted.
Shifting gears for a second, you indicated on direct examination that you reviewed some photographs from law enforcement that showed no footprints in the snow. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Were those provided to you by Trooper Proctor?
Yes.
Do you have those photographs with you?
No, I don't.
Do you recall what was depicted in those photographs?
Yes. If I remember correctly, it was the area of the fire hydrant and the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered. It's the front of the house, the area of the fire hydrant, and I believe the flagpole.
Thank you. You testified that Mr. O'Keefe had multiple fractures to his skull, but they seem to be originating from a single point of impact on the back of his head. Is that correct?
It appears so, yes.
Are you reasonably certain that all of his injuries were the result of a single impact to the back of the head?
It could be a single impact.
But it also could be multiple impacts, correct?
It could be, yes.
Because as you just testified, Mr. O'Keefe suffered multiple injuries to the front of his face as well.
Correct.
In other words, he could have suffered a trauma to the face and then fallen and sustained the injury to the back of the head, correct?
That is possible, yes.
And you testified before the state grand jury that the areas of bruising to the brain were likely due to a fall. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your expert medical opinion, is it possible for someone to get punched in the face hard enough to lose consciousness and fall backward?
Objection.
Yes.
I'll allow it.
It's possible.
Sure.
May I see the exhibits that were just marked around? Your Honor, if I could have permission to publish what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 19.
Yes.
Dr. Squirty, it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but there's some redness that you observe on the body by the ribs that we observed in some of the other photographs that were presented by Mr. Lally.
We have just one yard.
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to show you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 648. Ms. Gilman, would it be, basically take that down? Ms. Gilman, would it be possible to display Exhibit 648? 648. May I approach, Chairman?
Yes.
It's 2853. Thank you. Dr. Squirty, you were shown this photograph by Mr. Lally on direct examination.
Yes.
Do you see the redness sort of next to his rib cage on the bottom? Correct.
Yes.
What is that?
That is liver.
Lividity?
Lividity, yes.
Can you describe to the jury what lividity is?
Yes, lividity is the pooling of blood to the dependent areas of the body after someone is deceased.
So even though it sort of appears to look like a bruise, that's lividity, correct?
That is lividity, yes. It goes all the way down.
And it's not the result of an injury.
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, the lights, please. Thank you. Mr. Lally?
Dr. Squirty, you did observe a minor abrasion to Mr. O'Keefe's right knee. Is that correct?
Okay. We're done. We're done. So that's what we got to look forward to in the next trial. Woo! Yay! I cannot believe we're done. We're freaking done. No, I didn't want beam search. Oh, anyways. All right. Everything is possible, right? But the thing is they can't prove that he wasn't in a physical altercation given. You know? So Tuesday shall be fun. We shall have fun, right? Alrighty. Okay. Let the ones you love and care about know that you love and care about them. Tomorrow's not promised, and you never know, this could be you, so watch your surroundings. Also, I'll see you guys Tuesday for Karen Read Trial 2.0. She's not guilty. That I'm just gonna say that. So, all right. Everybody have a safe and blessed night. Bye.
On this show called BDP, you know what I'm talking about? Shit. We been cool ever since, my nigga, you know what I'm talking about? Put your eyes on me, like the spotlight. Recognize me showing love, then got my grind right. Ain't never since day one the love been on side. And since you got my back, I got your back for life. Yeah, pretty honesty. Know just what it is